bunch of people. Got Powell, Greg, Story, and Corvallis. I think Salim is going to be joining us, and Andrew as well in just a little while. So should be a lot of fun. We got lots of things to give away, not nearly enough quiz questions to ask, and probably more prizes than we have live viewers. So you got a pretty good chance of winning if you're hanging around, is my guess. Anyway, how's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Doing all right.
Enjoying the snow, everybody except for Story. It's interesting that you're probably literally the person in the coldest place. Well, you or Powell, one of the two, and your video looks the warmest by far.
Orange lights are on purpose. I want this place warm. I'm sick of the cold. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's good stuff. So yeah, we've got a couple different topics I wanted to go over today, and then lots and lots of stuff to give away. We got writer codes, Odin codes, lots of nature manufacturer art. We've got, let me pull up my page of stuff. We've got some Shadowbox stuff. We've got Highland Panic codes, and I think we got one other thing that's not in here yet. It should be a lot of fun though, and hopefully pretty interesting. If anybody has questions along the way, feel free to just ask them in chat. And I actually, what I'd kind of like to do is start off with one of the questions I've been meaning to answer in a YouTube video that I think would be good to get a lot of different opinions on. And it came from somebody who said they're a 17-year-old student and they're trying to decide what to do next, whether it's getting into college or looking for a job. For game programming, they want to do the lower level stuff like graphics and engine stuff, and they wonder if they're better off entering the industry now, just getting an entry level job there doing CS or QA or something else, or going through university and getting a game or computer science degree. And this one, remember, they were very specific. They're definitely interested in like the graphics and engine programming side, the flow level stuff. So I think that somewhat biases me in this, but I'm curious what everybody else thinks.
My answer, in a rare turn of events, rather than me giving a big essay, I'll defer when it's not something I know very well. And in this case, there's a YouTuber called Ace Rolla who literally does that for a living and made an entire video about how I got into this field as someone who wanted to do this. And so I recommend checking out that channel. That's probably a much better answer than I'd give.
Right, so what was the TLDR on that? What was his path? Do you know? Like
mostly, he's like, there are books on this. There's resources out there. Just like literally start learning it. Pick something that's relatively simple to get started with. He was talking about like building a wave system and then layering up the different algorithmic stuff and understanding the principles of how it draws. Yeah, so it's pretty much the foundational principle stuff, but it's interesting. Like he has good resources for which books to do and which kind of algorithms are easier to approach, because a lot of these things are stepped. They'll layer on top of each other. And so you can kind of scare yourself off by jumping in too deep. So understanding some of the like wave function stuff first and building a website, that kind of stuff I thought was quite a useful bit of advice.
To chime in on that, as someone who's kind of done both, where I'm still in my undergrad for computer science, for probably game engineering and programming, I'd say do both. Meaning, go to college, because college gives you a very, very nice, privileged position where internships are more likely to look at you because you're a university student. You have your other fellow students. It's easier to support yourself with financial aid and other things. But while going to college, continue to build your portfolio and try to get that job experience through internships, through building your own things, and potentially whatever other additional work or contract work you can try. Really do both, because in my personal experience, I tried college, had COVID happen, so I wanted to go directly into the workforce, did that and gained invaluable experience in portfolio building at that time. But I think it was the inflation rate hike that caused a lot of those tech layoffs. I was part of that first generation of layoffs. So, of course, financially, things got hard. If you go the non-college route, you can grow a lot faster. You can build that portfolio, but your security is still up in the air. And things are recovering, but do keep that in mind, especially as you're trying to build a portfolio and as you want to sustain yourself. It's possible, just very, very hard. So I'd recommend try to do both. Try to walk in auxiliary as a student while still building your resources.
And actually, one thing to add on to that, it's not my advice, but it's something that I heard. And I thought it was a spicy take, but it matches similar to what you're saying. Jonathan Blow was recently asked a question, probably not recently, but he was asked about whether someone should, what they can do, go to college for programming and that kind of thing. And in his usual spicy take fashion, he said, if you learn web dev, you'll learn how to be an average dev, because that's such a higher level than everything else. If you start there and set your expectations, you won't get the information of how things actually work, because you'll never be forced in a position where you'll have to learn it. And so to your point, you should learn it on the side, precisely because if you go to enterprise, you'll learn how to write Java, you'll learn how to use JavaScript. You won't learn those other principles of how graphics work, because there'll never be a facility that requires you to do that. And so if you want to get a deeper understanding of algorithms, you are going to have to bite the bullet and do it yourself anyway, because no job will ever really force you to do that out the gate.
Yep. And to even continue on that train, I'm very much a person I learn for things that I need. So if it's very much not a realm I will touch or will need, there's not a lot of interest for me to just pick it up for the sake of learning it. But both through either requirements put upon me through school. So like I took assembly language, which was a really great course. It got me to learn a lot of the lower level computer systems I had kind of been putting off to the side, or through work. So I was looking at like a position that required C++. I'm like, okay, well, I have a tool. I want to finally port it to Unreal. This will be a good way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. That ability to learn is the greatest. You'll find the greatest value in something you need, and the fact that you need to progress and gain new skills in that. And generally having two pressures of either a job or a project you want to do, or some form of scholastic aim, that's really great. And if those overlap, even better. Like that's the best world, where you get to have that formal educational structure, but also continue to learn on your own, aim for like milestones, and go beyond just what like the base course material is.
Yeah, I think I would be thinking about two possibilities. Yeah, I'm doing mostly graphics programming and stuff like that. And for me, there's one thing that higher education and college would give you is mathematics on higher level. Learning yourself mathematics on high level, on a higher education level, is hard. You really have to put years of work to do it yourself. I know I was training people in higher mathematics. I trained my team in higher mathematics because all of our 3D artists needed higher mathematics to do stuff on the level that we are doing it right now. Yeah. So that's the biggest problem, doing yourself. Yeah, especially for graphics programming, engine programming a little less, but graphics programming on high level, mostly. I give you an example. We are doing right now waves, ocean waves. Yeah, and to do it, if you want to learn it on the part of Unreal or and Unity, even water level, you need to read scientific documents, university documents that are doing it. And if you want to learn to read them properly, you should be learning them on higher education, yeah, because that's the easiest part. That's mostly, if you are able to go to university that works on this stuff, that works on game graphics, that's the best way, because you will be going with professors that are creating those documents that later seniors like me are using mostly, yeah. Because when we are working on graphics, on engine programming, we don't have as much time to prototype mostly. Yeah, it's less frequent that we prototype. We mostly do something and are engaged in it. And there are people, scientists, professors at universities that most of the time they are working on doing higher maths. Yeah, I saw that ChatGPT about math. Yeah, higher maths on ChatGPT. I haven't seen good answers to questions when I'm asking them on specific topics that we are working right now. Yeah,
I think that's what the /s was for.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's
although
for
it may
me.
Get there one day.
So for me, maybe one day. Yeah. So for me, that's the most problematic thing about graphics. Yeah, if you go up to the level when you need to do something yourself or create something new, you need mathematics background in graphics programming, and this mathematics background needs to be that if you're doing some calculations like let's say you have waves and you have to know how this wave bounces light with exact numbers, you have to do it with higher mathematics. So yeah, for me that's the only thing. Yeah, and to be truthful, I would look less into game programming studies, more into mathematics courses if you're going to graphics programmer. Best thing if you can do both at the same time. But there are not so many universities that teach you this on a very good level. Yeah, I have the possibility to study both masters in computer science with games and master in mathematics. Yeah, but without it, I think the graphics programmer on the highest level isn't possible without higher mathematics, unfortunately. Yeah, you can buy books, but these books will look totally not understandable and you will need years of learning by heart each day, something that's not fun if you don't have someone that can explain it to you in 5 minutes what all these symbols means. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was like when I read this question, the one thing that made me think that maybe you should get some sort of college stuff in there, it was literally the math for the graphics and some of the engine stuff. I feel like some of that stuff is very, very difficult to learn on your own. But I think that either way, like you're still going to have to learn like 95% of it on your own. It's going to be very heavily self-directed. If you're already doing that and you're already getting into that stuff and you're making progress with it, then you're probably on the right path. If you're looking at it and hating it and just hoping that going to college is going to make it suddenly easy and magically appear, it's not. It's just going to leave you with a bunch more things that you're going to need to figure out afterwards. It's going to help you with some of the problems, but you're going to have to do most of the like figuring out how to do actual rendering work or how to build an engine. You're going to have to do most of that studying on your own. And like the videos that I linked it in chat, the ones that Story was talking about, I think you're going to have to look at what people like him are doing. Probably watch a lot more Jonathan Blow. Go watch
even on the waves thing, by the way. He literally has 2 videos going through in vivid detail all the stuff Paul was describing, right down to like the light refraction and making sure it's diffused across, making sure it doesn't tile, which is a common problem with any of those, waves. So all of this stuff is fascinating. It's really interesting to look at, even if the math is, in my case, way over my head.
Yeah. No, that stuff I get lost too constantly. So I totally agree that like on that stuff, there's a lot of value there. My only thing with college is like whatever you do, don't put yourself into a ton of debt to go there. Like if you can afford it and it's manageable and it's something you can do while you're working, awesome, or it's covered. But don't go like hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt hoping that it's going to magically pay off at the end. Like make sure it's cheap, affordable, and you're able to pay for it working while you're doing it. Because you may or may not get a ton of value out of it. It really depends. And also, when you're doing it, I think it matters a lot more than you think where you go and what school you go to, like what classes you're taking for the especially for the mathematics side. And it may not matter like the exact college. It might just be like a couple specific professors that are going to matter the most. So do your research. Don't just pick and think that everything is going to be the same. So anyway, Salim, you got thoughts on this? You've been kind of silent since you started, or since you kind of came in right in the middle of this question. But there was a 17-year-old wondering what to do. They want to get into game development, wanting to do graphics or engine development, and they're wondering if they should go to school or just jump right in and get a job. I personally think it's not bad to do both and do the research along the side. You got plenty of time. You're 17. As long as you don't have any kids or any wife or anything like that, you should be good to go. Do it all.
That's why. Hang on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's using my webcam mic instead of my normal mic, but assuming you can hear me enough. But yeah, I mean, I think that anything that you learn, like you don't know if you really like it until you actually have something to apply it to, because you're not going to see how much you really care about it or how good you are at it until you're actually trying to apply it to something. But I mean, as far as like college, I'm in like the reverse situation now. You know, I've been game industry for 20 years, and now I'm getting into web dev, and I actually am in a situation where I'm thrown into the fire.
Yeah, you're
and-
going deep in it, man. Like when you were talking about the stuff you're doing, I was like, you're skipping past the basics. You're going into like, you know, the kind of stuff that I was literally doing as a job when I was doing back end development work, and it's like you're hitting the more complicated concepts.
Yeah, and like I'm finding that I actually dig. I mean, I'm on vacation now, but this morning, first thing I woke up was go and look at this error because I'm like really compelled to try to figure it out. And then you start digging into obviously like kind of backwards engineering versus engineering it. And it's like I'm like, if I had learned this stuff from the beginning, I would probably know this, but digging through it is just fun for me. So now I'm looking at okay, well, let me just take a course or something on this since I don't have to pay for it. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, college, you shouldn't be able to put yourself in debt to do college nowadays at all. Like it's so easy to get free courses online, to get like serious courses online for fairly cheap. You can get them supplemented. So if you want to go to college route, don't just take the first option for sure when it comes to money. Do some research, find anything as supplemental. Hell, the JC on the corner from here where I run, they just recently announced they're just basically free. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Maybe I'll go take some classes over here and do some in-person classes just because, you know, if it's free, why not do it? But yeah, I definitely do some research. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, you can take all classes you want. You're not going to really know if you're good at it until you actually have a real world example to apply it to. So I would definitely get into the workforce in any way you possibly could as soon as possible, and apply those skills because it's going to also accelerate your ability to learn that in school.
Absolutely. The learning to supplement your learning as soon as you can is probably one of the most valuable skills, because especially once you're out of college or in the workforce, there are going to be times where you're coming across scenarios you're not familiar with. Being able to grab that experience and adapt and improve is a skill by itself. And I'll add a little asterisk here too, because this may not be relevant depending on the degree you go for or your particular curriculum. But especially for, like, let's say early stage computer science, when you first start, there's going to be an abrasion of, is any of this related to like what I actually want to do? You might start taking GEs, you might start taking other classes that don't feel like they're actually helping you on your career to be a graphics game programmer. And that'll be true. There are going to be classes like that. Every college has general requirements. Don't use that as a dissuasion. Use that as a time to do that additional research, to grab that information ahead of time. Because especially if you can already plan out what classes you're taking, pre-prep and pre-study in whatever realm of class you're going to take. So when you eventually get to higher mathematics, try to approach it on your own. Then when you take the class, you can get even more out of it because you have some background to contextualize and really harness that power.
I think you also, as far as the gen ed thing goes, I think if you sit back and take a look at what they are, you can also probably project forward and see how just the fundamentals of some of them might help you in the grand scheme of things. I think people do like dismiss the concept of a gen ed because they don't see how it directly attaches to or connects to what their end goal is, and they need to like stop and focus on what's in front of them. And get the best they can out of it, because it's just going to make you better overall. And then someday you're going to realize, oh crap, like this, you know, this class I took here is directly applied to this and helped me learn this skill or something like that. So definitely don't overlook them. And if you can choose them, try to see which ones apply to that light that you're trying to get to at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Especially just like, even if it seems simple, like foundations of English, getting the ability to write, that practice writing, that formalization for writing is great because you're going to be writing. If it's letters, if it's technical documentation, you are going to be using a lot of these soft skills. So do not overlook soft skills.
Just commenting in code itself, like that, basic stuff like that can be helpful.
That's why we don't write comments. All terrible at it. Before we go on, I wanted to do one quick giveaway. We've got a lot of stuff to give away, so I thought it would be good to maybe do one. And let me just pop up. Come on, waiting for it to show up. This one. Let's start with. Why don't we start with one of the nature manufacturer ones first?
Ooh.
Sound good, pal? How about this landscape pack? And
Yeah.
we'll just do. I got a really simple first question. For whoever types the answer in chat first, we'll get the code. All you have to do is tell me what Salim's last name is, because it's not on there. Type it in chat. The first one to get it in there gets the code for the landscape ground pack from Nature Manufacturer.
Aggressive Googling.
Yeah, we'll have some Unity and game dev questions too, but this one seemed like an easy one. So the man is not quite it. No, sorry.
Although I have to, they're changing it to the man. And my last name is not Salim. I'm not Mario.
All right, it looks like Corey won by just a second. So go ahead and shoot me an email, Corey. I'll send you the code for the Nature Manufacturer Landscape Ground Pack. We've got a ton of stuff to give away, so I'm just going to pop up and randomly give things away every couple minutes as we keep going through stuff. So thank you, pal. And everybody, there's a ton of Nature Manufacturer stuff on the New Year's sale right now. You can check it out. It's all like 50% off. We'll be going through showing quite a few of those things.
Highland Panic's 50% off too in the Steam winter sale.
It is, and we have a code for Highland Panic to give away, right?
Yep.
Do you have a quick question that somebody can answer in chat to win it?
I sent some to the dev chat. I'd have to go back and look at what I sent.
We'll have to. Let's see. Okay, I've got one for the first question. What game engine was Highland Panic built in? Type it in chat.
First.
Let's see who's the fastest. Salim Badass Grant. Nope. I like it.
I'm going to change my middle name to Badass.
Got a new nickname. Anybody got it? The game engine that Highland Panic was built in. Greg built it, and he's talked about it quite a bit. Oh,
that's a lot. I think simultaneously.
Like, Nicholas, you can see the delay instantly. Oh, so close. It was right there. Nicholas won just by half a second. Go ahead and shoot me an email too, and I will send you the code for either Android Android, Steam, or Apple, whichever one, as long as you've got. As long as I have one available. Was it written in Notepad++? Has anybody written code in Notepad++ in the past or recently?
Yes.
I have.
Yeah.
Exercise of masochism.
Or just sitting there judging like you.
I don't think I ever actually I opened code to read it in Notepad++ back in the day, but I never put myself through the torture of actually compiling or running anything through it or actually writing code through it.
I've modified it in there, and yeah.
I've done back in when I was studying, we had speed programming challenges, and Notepad++ was sometimes the fastest way to type because its reaction and save time was faster than any IDE.
Unless you're trying to change the language, in which case you have to go through that stupid tree structure of down the drop-down list.
But we have everything prepared, and mostly it was like seconds between teams and defenses. So we always choose what was the fastest thing that could save, and then send to server. Yeah.
That is true. I mean, my editor of choice at the time was Sublime Text, but that was slower. It was just so pretty relative to.
Mostly I used it for quick programming, or if I wanted to change some script on HTML websites, just quickly open, change, and save. Yeah, no big programming. Nope, no chance.
Although these days I've grown up, so now when I need to do quick code that's faster, I use NeoVim, like a grown up, and I don't use
exactly.
Oh,
still using that VS Code bib. Okay, I'm not ready to take my binky out.
Dustin's planning on writing an entire MMO entirely in Notepad++. Funny thing is, it's the tools for the original ones weren't much different. It's like the Notepad++ is probably better than a lot of the stuff that the original like EQ and Ultima Online were written with.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that Dustin's a troll, though. I mean, suggesting that I wrote Highland Panic in Unreal 5.
Well, that would explain the visuals.
Right? You also use nanite on the cars, right? That's why they're so high quality.
Good stuff. So we get okay. Anyway, let's do another giveaway. I got some. Where are these codes at? Odin, Inspector, and Serializer. If you haven't used Odin before, then probably should try it out. At the very least, go grab the free trial. But these were 1-year codes that we got for Odin, and we'll give one away in just a second as soon as we figure out what a question is. Let me go find that question form.
While you're doing that, things we always point out like the value of Odin. I think every time it's mentioned, I'll try to like add a new attribute people don't know about to use on it. So like last time I talked about the inline serializing, which is my favorite feature in the whole thing. But if you want another one, which is really fun, there's just one called searchable, and you can slap it on top of a mono behavior and it adds a search box, and it will literally chunk and filter the entire object. So if you came from the scenario of having your 5,000 property wide giant character controller and you haven't subcategorized it or organized it or anything, you can at least make it easier to find something by just writing the word searchable on top, and then you could type movement and it'll instantly jump to your movement variables. So that's a really quick fix that you should probably organize it, but if you're not going to organize it, this will at least get you a much better way of using the editor.
Yeah, here's kind of, you can see loosely what it looks like there. But yeah, I definitely recommend everybody go try this thing out if you haven't used it. I use it all the time. It's like one of the only assets that I use in pretty much everything. I made a video yesterday. The only one that I found that I use second most is particles, and just because they're so generic that I use them for a bunch of different stuff. But here's the question for this one. First one to type it in chat will win, which was I'm going to go to question number 3 on my list. Who was on the first episode of the Game Dev Show? Just list the people. If you can put the full list of people in there, whoever types it out first. Story knows.
No, Story doesn't know. It's like, was I on?
You don't remember?
No.
Oh, Story was on there.
Like we're in hundreds at this stage, Mar. Like, you know, we're well past the point where I'm going to remember the details of the earlier ones.
Hey, it was episode 1.
We've got Jason, probably.
There was definitely Jason.
There's a good chance that someone named Jason was on.
There is one Jason.
Regardless, yeah.
Oh, I got it. It was, me, you, and Charles. Remember?
Makes sense. I mean, we did do a few. I remember early on. I didn't know if it was the first one.
Yeah, that was the first one. It was just the 3 of us hanging out, and I don't even remember what we talked about anymore. So, congratulations. Send me an email, and I'll send you over that Odin Inspector code. It's like I said, 1-year license. Should be awesome. You'll love it. Everybody else here does. So, along with the show, yeah, I miss Charles too. It's a shame what happened to him. He got eaten up by the enterprise industry.
Assumed never return.
He made one too many singletons, and I made him pay the price.
Is there a show where the word singleton is not uttered? I'm pretty sure. Like,
I
haven't been on it, and it's gone by without saying it.
Definitely. All right. Let's see. Let's give away one more thing real quick while we're at it. We've got I'm just gonna go down the list of nature manufacturer stuff. We got Landscape Ground Pack 2. Let's give that one away as well. Anybody got a question?
Oh man.
I put a few bits of game trivia in your sheet. I don't know if there's those are backups.
What
I can have one question.
What are Jason Story's favorite kind of trees?
Oh.
I was tempted to put that question in myself, actually, or a variation of it. So. That's a deep cut.
Only true lore masters will have that one.
I haven't got the slightest clue what the answer to that is. Is that a real
come
question?
on. You know what the answer to that is.
All right.
You will
Well,
once someone gets it, I think.
Let me know when the real answer pops up.
I don't think anyone's gonna get this one.
What? Nobody knows your favorite.
We have a winner.
Was it that would make sense?
Yeah. So
Someone
we haven't answered it. Yeah. So,
Yep.
so the answer was bullet trees as a frustrating misreading of something I was saying, and it became a meme and ruined my point, but it stuck. So
bullet trees are not actually your favorite? Is a trick question the whole time?
well, it's certainly the one that haunts me. Yeah.
There's favorite now, as everyone else has deemed.
Well, someone got the answer, so yeah, we're good.
All right, Pal, did you have a question? We can go on to Ice World. So send me an email. I'll send you that code for the was Landscape Ground Pack 2. Anybody wants to win Ice World, though, Powell's got a question, I think, right?
Yeah. How many assets does Nature Manufacturer has on assets?
All right. Let's do the answer. I don't even know. I'm going to guess it's somewhere around like 10,000. At least like 100.
It's definitely upwards of like 50 to 100. Absolutely. 50
Nope.
being the low bracket.
Not
Try to vote for 53. 27, 111, 142.
69.
70, 30. Nobody's got it yet? You would think that this one would be pretty easy to figure out. You just click on the publisher.
Yeah, you can click on the publisher. Yeah, that's an answer. Michał Nawrocki, 31.
Really?
Right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
31
31
bucks. Yeah.
So is it Jupiter that got it?
No, I think the Michał Nawrocki was earlier.
Right up above. I see it. Yep, I see. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nice. Congrats.
And this Ice World gives you this, this water and grounds that are behind me.
That's
The packs are
perfect.
so high quality. I thought there was more than I was counting each one as like 2+ packs.
No. 31
Well, yeah.
bucks.
Congrats. Just send me an email. I'll send you that code as well. Just when you send me the email, let me know which pack you won, so that way I can make sure I get the right ones to the right people. Sweet. I said 31 a few weeks ago, so that counts. Yeah, that would that'd be nice. Let's see. So there were a couple other topics I wanted to go. We got lots of other stuff to give away, so we'll do a couple more in a few minutes. But there are a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. Just going down the list real quick. This chair is actually pretty awesome. I've gone through a bunch of chairs, and usually I don't really care too much, but this one actually is helping. After getting in that car wreck, my back's been hurting like hell, and I can totally tell the difference between this and all of the other chairs I have, except for the massage chair. Like, it's very, very supportive and pretty damn good. I was surprised by it. So it's a new brand, this Odin Lake. It confuses me because it's just like Odin, but it's a chair brand, and it is comfortable as hell, and it's got way too many features on it. I think I'm going to do a video about it eventually, but I was just, I don't know. I felt like I should mention it because I've been ranting and raving to my wife about how freaking comfortable it is. It's got like adjustable lumbar support. Everything moves, and I don't know. It feels a lot like the why can't I get my words out? What's the chair that you're using?
Herman Miller's?
Yeah, it feels a lot like the Herman Miller ones, but a little bit bigger and more comfortable for me. Like it has the bigger
and
collar,
I assume
neck
less
support, and
expensive
head
than a
support.
Herman Miller.
What's that?
I assume less expensive than a Herman Miller.
I think they're a little bit less expensive, but they're still pretty pricey. they're like, this one's I think 800 on sale or something. They gave me a code, Jason, that gives you like 2% off or something. But it's they're definitely, for me it's more comfortable. Like the Herman Miller ones, I always liked them, but I always felt like they didn't go up high enough and give me enough support, or like the ability to just kind of comfortably lean back and chill. And this one has all of that.
I will say that was always a
things.
limit for me, specifically. So of the two big ones, the Embody and the no, I'm black. The Aeron. The Aeron was my favorite, but the problem with the Aeron is exactly as you said. It caps out like too far down my neck, and so I got a third-party headrest. So this is like literally I had to pay extra for an add-on which provides the headrest from a third-party provider. But it's night and day difference. This is much better. It's got a completely modular thing and all the extra features. So I do feel like it's a huge missed point of the original Aeron. Especially.
Yeah, and then on this one, the whole back adjusts too, so you can raise and lower the entire back up and down, and the bottom part, the seat like slides forward and in and out, so you can adjust the lumbar support. It was surprising. I expected it to be like every other chair where you got the wood and you screw it in and like you pop it together. This one was totally different. It was just like 4 bolts, and it was pretty damn sturdy and had it. I was impressed, so I felt like I should at least mention it. And if anybody's looking for something comfortable, it's certainly comfortable. It's pricey though.
I'm just rocking a good old X chair, and it is wonderful. And I have their like massager heat cooler thing that just pops into the back.
Oh,
it's great.
Yeah, I had one of those Acer massage gaming chairs that had heat and stuff, and that was not comfortable at all. It was good while you were getting a massage, but if you tried to sit in it and do anything else, it was horrible. It had like no support. It was basically like a hole in the back, and you're getting poked by little things. So good for massaging, like laying back, but
was it an acupuncture?
It was only like mediocre. What's that?
Was it acupuncture instead?
It kind of felt like it. I mean, like I said, it was okay if like you just really wanted to get your shoulders massaged or something while you're doing, but like as an actual supportive chair, it was pretty bad. It was pretty disappointing. It's just sitting in storage now. It's like nobody actually wanted to use it as their main chair because it's just not comfortable if you're not getting massaged 24/7.
Yeah, I've sworn off of gaming chairs ever since my last 2, and now we're back to nice, comfy office chairs. Pretty good results so far, except for one whose back snapped when I was trying to lean back. So that was a RMA and a very dangerous fall.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, after only 3 weeks as well, I was very, very not happy.
What was the support beam made out of? Freaking paper? Like why?
I don't know. I think maybe it might have been a defect with the screw or just very poorly made screws, but it was like irreparably snapped after done lean back.
That's crazy.
If you are looking for those kinds of chairs, the broad category is people say office chair, but if you're being more specific, the ones we're describing is more normally classified under what are called mesh chairs, which are specifically these categories designed to be breathable. But the kind of even more accurate term is task chair or operator chair, because they're the chairs that were originally designed for people who have long form task jobs. The subtle difference is task chairs are kind of the more office roll around, good for meetings type thing. And then operator chairs are more if you work in, say, security and have to sit at a desk for 9-10 hours watching security monitors. They're designed to be slightly more supportive, but they don't have to be as breathable. So it's kind of a weird paradox. But office chairs are designed to be slightly less comfortable on purpose because you're meant to be, back straight, focused, and have good posture. But if you're going to be sitting in a chair for long periods of time and you can recline more because you're not having to be focused towards the machine the whole time, it's slightly different. So there's a whole like subcategory of all this, and there's of course executive chairs, but executive chairs are more on the fancy padded side. So yeah, there's subcategories of each of these that all have their own pros and cons. But I would say broadly mesh chair / office chair / task chair is kind of you want one of those if you're actually sitting working.
Setup is overlooked, but very important. You're at your desk, whatever keyboard, ergonomic chair setup you have will dramatically impact your health outcomes, especially as you're at your desk for several hours at a time. So doing like setup and reviews for that, important thing to do.
And also, you don't have to break the bank. A lot of the IKEA ones are actually pretty good. Like the mid-tier IKEA task chairs are perfectly fine. The reason why they're perfectly fine is because Herman Miller came out with the first proper task chairs, and everyone else just stole the design. There's a lot of variations that are slightly different, but literally 90% of them are roughly the same. They don't have all the same bells and whistles, but there's a huge category of the mid-tier Herman Millers that are like absolute clone knockoffs, and some people have gone and made modifications to make them different. So in general, you want to spend a couple hundred usually, but once you do, it's about fine. You don't have to spend like $2,000 like my chair, but you can spend a couple hundred and be perfectly fine, you know?
Yeah. Once you're in like that a couple hundred, 150 plus range, you're probably buying like a quality good set chair. Be careful if a deal seems too good to be true, because it might be, because I got that other chair on a little bit of the cheap end. Oh boy, I do not buy chairs cheap anymore.
At least check the screws before you put it together.
If you want also like a really good pro tip for getting a good chair, the Aeron is the highest bought chair in the industry. It is the most, every Silicon Valley company in the world buys them in bulk. And so there's so many of them that so many startups buy them in bulk and then, you know, shut their doors. And so there's companies literally whose sole job it is to buy up stock of these chairs and resell them. And so you can often find Aerons specifically, not the newer models like the Embodies, but the Aerons, you can buy those at like less than half price because they're kind of used stock from other places.
Reseller, yeah. Nice.
Yeah, with the caveat to that is they come with a lumbar support, and there's two kinds. If you have the old form Aerons, you have the really crappy lumbar, which breaks, and which means you won't get one if you get a second-hand one. And the newer ones are all using this Y-shaped one, which is a much more sturdy design. So, long story short, if you want to get a good chair and you're willing to pay $400 to $500, and not the full couple thousand, you can get an Aeron secondhand from somewhere, but then you want to go online, say eBay, for example, and buy yourself a lumbar support to attach back onto the back of it, because you'll probably be missing it. That's the cheapest to like bang for your buck solution for a good chair. With the last caveat is there's actually 3 kinds, so make sure you get the right one, A, B, and C sized. So look into it and make sure you get one that matches you.
And then of course there's a standing desk option, which I did for a couple years. And I ended up buying one of those kooky stool chairs where you sit with your knees like kneeling down, and you sit like this, and it forces your back like straight, which took a little getting used to, but once I got used to it, it was actually fairly comfortable. I was like playing games and stuff, just on the TV, sitting in that thing as a part of getting used to it. But yeah, I enjoyed using standing desk for a while. Obviously it takes your legs and feet some time to get used to that, but once you do, like, you don't even notice it and you're back.
Why are you not using one now though?
Because of where we are, I can't get I can't really do the conversion where we're staying right now.
My motor died at my desk. This is a standing desk and the motor's dead, and it's an IKEA old model, and there's no the replacement for it is like they don't have that one anymore. And so like I would have to kind of go through a whole process of retrofitting the new, and it's like I'm going to at some stage just get another desk, but like for now it kind of sucks. I'm just lucky it was in a good height when it died, so it's like it's reasonably still usable.
I never got a motorized desk before. I just did old school. I just put all my monitors on arms and then got like a thing you put on your desk and then do it that way. I never did a motorized desk, but next spot that we move to, I'll probably just end up investing in a motorized one just to be able to quickly convert.
All right, let's give something away again real quick. Let's do this. RAM 2019. And anybody have a desk or chair related question you want to ask?
Well, there was a good question. There's a good Highland Panic question in here.
Yeah, but that's for a Highland Panic key.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's do a chair or desk related question.
We could quiz the audience if they've been paying attention. So, what is one of the highest quality chair manufacturers that costs like over $1,000?
All right.
Oh, that's an easy one.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see who's been listening intently.
So you're not using the standing desk now, huh? Herman Miller. Yep.
You got it.
Congrats, Joseph. Send me an email for that RAM code. We'll send it right over. Start generating some rivers. Get ready to do some lava and other stuff. Yep, this Odin Lake one is very good too. I think they're under $1,000 though, so that wouldn't have made it to the question, which is interesting because I feel like they feel a lot like a lot of the other ones that have copied it, but I feel like they did a better job at a cheaper price, which is nice. Most of them, I feel like they do like a worse job than the Herman Miller ones at a cheaper price. Like the IKEA ones, they're nice, but they're not as good. Same with like the standing desks, they're nice, but you can tell like they're a little bit thinner and a little bit slower. And I feel like it's the same with all the IKEA ones. And yeah, this one's pretty damn good. So I'm happy with it. I'm gonna shut up about it now though. Let's go on and let's do one more giveaway. We got lots of stuff to give away. Let's go back and do another Odin one first though, before we do more art. So if somebody wants to win an Odin code, Story, you got a good question there? An Odin related question?
Oh, an Odin related question. Name one of the developers.
Name one of the developers of Odin and Specter. Win a free code. I also have a writer code to do too. Don't let me forget to do that pretty soon.
There was a question about the Odin license. Somebody was asking, why is there a 1-year license? He thought that it was once you buy it, you own it. So what is the 1-year subscription?
I think so these codes are on the Odin Inspector site, and they're for the enterprise version of it. I'm not 100% sure. I need to double check that, but I think that they're for that enterprise license on there. So they give it's a 1-year license, and I think that's for updates, just to work after that. But I think it just stops with the updates after that. But I'm not completely sure. So let's see. We got Bill Odin, Steve,
On Odin,
Thor, Serenix, Jeremy, Susie Odin. I think we kind of. You want to call out the winner here?
Well, I was kind of debating whether I'm going to give it to Kashmir because it's whether Tor or Thor counts. I don't know. That's a little bit on the fence.
So it is close. I assume they meant.
Yeah,
they probably are being facetious and saying Thor because Odin is.
Oh, that's a good point. We'll wait for a valid answer. I didn't even think about that.
Odin is Thor's father. Sorry.
Yggdrasil is if you really want to be facetious. Okay.
Let's see. Was it Jeremy? No, it's not Susie Odin, and not the name of the company Serenix, but one of the actual developers. If anybody's got it. I mean, not that we said it online.
Not that you just said it.
We're checking if they're paying attention.
Wait for Thunder. Okay, there.
They had a booth at your game conference, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Congrats. Send me an email. Get you that code. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. So, what else did we have? There were a couple other topics on this list, right? Of things to talk about. Did anybody? I know Yorai had mentioned that law thing in China. Did anybody know anything about that yet?
Law thing in China. A little more context. Oh, the gotcha thing. Yeah,
no, just the China law.
One of the laws in China.
Yeah, they did a law thing. So there was. Well, here, let me share the tab, and maybe we can talk about this next week. But I was sharing this thing about some possible new policy preventing like daily rewards and daily bonuses and stuff, which I assume would make Salim happy if that happened here, because then he would never have to make another daily reward system again.
They've been cracking down on that stuff here in general anyway. But yeah, lock boxes is not my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this and I thought, oh, it seems interesting. I mean, I don't know that banning it is necessarily the thing to do, but I definitely don't like them, and I never have liked the whole problem of like there's this desire to get people to constantly play your game because you want it to be something that where people are actively playing and it's monetized and stuff.
Yeah.
But you're also like, I feel like it gives these motives to do things that make it super addictive where you're just playing for the addiction part, not so much for the fun and enjoyment.
Yeah.
You know?
Your game becomes
I
a
think
job.
that it's with the number of games that come out, especially like good indie games, people only have so much gaming equity. They can't, like, these games that want to like take your soul and have you only play them, I think is very short-sighted and silly. You can get a lot out of someone if you give them a moment of fun. You know, it's 5-10 minutes or whatever, you know, over a stretch of, you know, a month or something like that, and then bring them back to your game later on, you know, when you get something new, and just give them like a dose of it and let them enjoy the rest of their gaming library. I mean, people appreciate that so much more. You know, or you just have a storytelling game, a game that has a good experience that you just go through. You don't rely on New Game Plus or any other crap to like get the full story. Just like give me a good experience, give me a good game, and then let me go play something else. Let me appreciate someone else's art, and get into that and be inspired by that, and maybe then join in that and show you my art. Like it really bothers me that the industry has turned into this one game is the only choice you have if you really want to get your money out of it. It drives me bonkers. I hate it with such a passion, because I think it is ridiculous to try to just eat people's lives like that. It's a hobby. It's a thing that you do. Let me go out and live my life and do other things without feeling guilty about not playing a game.
You know, the guy that made Wordle deliberately made it so you can only play it once a day, so there wouldn't become that kind of addictive thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 50 clone games of it didn't have the same ethos. So.
What if I did that but just made it less ethical? I make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree that a lot of those practices are infuriating because of exactly that. They're literally appealing to a lot of gambler fallacy level of logic. But the one that personally bothers me, it's not actually as egregious from a financial perspective, but just, I don't know, from a tackiness perspective, it bothers me a lot. It's the old cliche thing of if you go to any large, like if you go to Warner Brothers or you go to Disney or wherever, there's a general phrase in the industry called exit through the gift shop, right? And that's literally like you specifically have the exit walk you through the gift shop so that on your way out, you're going to buy a pile of crap. And the philosophy of that in my mind is let me play the game. And if you have a shop, fine. But there's two ways this is pernicious. MMOs often do this, where one of your actual missions will be to use the shop, even if it's free. They want you to engage with the shop as an actual mission, and it's gross. And then the other one that just bothers me is if I launch your game, and the first thing I see is a shop, I'm out. That's the one thing that stopped me playing Paladins. I really like that game. I think it's a good game. But any game where I open it and the very first thing I see is not game but shop, I'm like, your priorities are very clear to me, and so I'm out.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah.
And
you say MMOs, and it makes me sad because coming from, you know, original old school MMOs where it wasn't like that. The compelling nature was being with friends and stuff like that, and grinding, getting levels and taking on dragons. And nowadays it is this, you know, go to the shop, be a fashionista, do all this like weird stuff that it's not a part of the game to me.
Get a house and decorate it, damn it. It's the only part that matters.
Yeah.
Made even worse too for like there's a fun mobile game I like to play, AFK Arena, but it is so inundated. I decided to boot it back up after like not playing it for a year. And spam, would you like to buy the shop? Would you like to buy the shop? Randomly when you're playing, hey, here's a shop. You have a special bonus. We've decremented it by 50% off. It's a fun mental challenge at this point, clicking no every time because it does spam me. And I like
playing. Do they
playing
reverse the buttons at any point? Do they ever like put yes on the right when it's normally on the left just to trick you?
That is, luckily they don't do that, but I have had games where they have intentionally swapped the yes and no sometimes, so you end up following through, even though you can back out later. That is actually so
Yeah, even just the dark pattern thing of in all design, when you have a UX you have a call to action. So you basically have a primary button, and the primary button is usually continue. But in the case of shops, they'll hide the cancel and they'll promote the accept. And so that's, again, one of those dark patterns where the buttons themselves are not equally weighted. So your instincts are always to press the OK button, and they color and style the buy the same as the OK button, so that your instincts will drive
bigger, and the cancel button's really tiny in the corner. Or they trick you with the weird confirmation one. Are you sure? Then they ask you an "Are you sure?" in a really weird way, where yes is actually the way that you get out of it. Yeah, oh man.
I canceled Instacart yesterday, and it was like that. It went through 3 different things, and the last one was there was some text there with a little tiny link that said "can't continue to cancel," and then 2 big buttons for how long I could maybe pause or resume my account for. Yeah, I was like, oh, so like little tiny text up there. You have to click the continue to cancel. I was like,
playing a game to cancel paying for the game and to stop playing the game. A very tiny but subtle one that, for reference, even though I'm young, I don't use TikTok that often, but this is a really, really messed up thing the app does. When you click back to escape out the app, it doesn't actually do that. It plays another video first. You have to double click it in quick succession to actually leave the app. The app literally just ignores your first input and continues throwing you content unless you are hard to try to exit it. That was one of the moments where I'm like, oh no, if you are young and you're trying to exit, that's really messed up, because you're not going to know. I have to rapid click to escape you.
Yeah.
And any of y'all use Duolingo?
Yeah. A while ago, yeah.
So, I've been doing Duolingo, studying Spanish on the side. I try to do 1 lesson a day, but of course, every single time you do the app, it makes you watch an ad, right? And a lot of times the ad is also, let's buy Super Duolingo, where you have unlimited hearts and unlimited mistakes. And I'm like, I just want to do my 1 free lesson today and move on. But they definitely inundate you with the ads.
Yeah, and it's a shame too, because being predatory is generally financially rewarded, because you are going to get more people to accidentally click through. Someone didn't cancel their subscription because it was actually too much work to do so, and there's that financial lock-in, even though there is like a long-term cultural and like ethical cost. So just a small example is like in games, because so many games try to be live services, they actually end up cutting off their pool from working on something else. Instead, you are pumping a lot more resources to one live service. And if that live service fails, the failure is a lot larger than just if you had made a game, released it, and let it have a normal life cycle. You keep trying to pump into the live service. And if you do not get that maximum capture, your sunk cost is higher.
Now, there is unfortunately a Moloch problem with all of this, which is to say that it's not as egregious as each of these games are. It's a problem with game theory. It's not the games themselves. It is the nature of, in an environment where more games are coming out than time your time doesn't increase with games that are available, and so every game is competing for the same conceptual time slot, and it gets to the point that the life cycle of games is now much shorter. Like none of us, unless it's Baldur's Gate 3, none of us is playing the game for hundreds of hours anymore. That doesn't really happen as much unless it's like you're entrenched in something. And so a lot of these are trying to have high burns on earnings very early. So I'm kind of torn, because I understand like the indie industry is just absolutely drowning financially. There's so few people aren't making nearly as much money. So there is an understanding that indies do have to find a way to get revenue. What bothers me is there isn't really a prosumer option in a lot of these cases. Like, I would be happy in even some small indie games, I'd be happy to pay double their normal price to just turn off all the crap that I don't want. And that unfortunately doesn't seem to be a usual option. And I was actually laughing about this to myself, that like, I don't think people remember this going forward, but it used to be games would have unlockables traditionally in them. And the one that sticks out to me is the Spider-Man games and Mario Odyssey and Spider-Man are the only 2 games in like recent history where they have unlockable skins that are entirely built as part of the game's internal cycle. And that used to be the default all of the time. You would assume games would have unlockables and there'd usually be 3 or 4 skins or characters, but they wouldn't be DLC content or on-disc DLC, and it slowly crept up through the process. And it's funny to me how like I actually had that's really nice. They're giving me free skin, and like in my head I'm like that should be the way it works. I shouldn't be amazed that the game is allowing me to customize my character without paying more money. And it's funny how like they've moved the Overton window, so even my own expectation is like, you know, I'm rewarding them for doing the thing Spider-Man 2 did when I played it when I was younger. You know?
Oh, they gave me back that feature. That's so nice of them for giving me back what I had before.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is like a great example of a game that appreciates your time. It appreciates you as a gamer, it appreciates people who want a good story, who want a good experience, and want it done in a reasonable amount of time. And when you walk away from the game, you feel like you had a good experience and you just want to go play something else. Great. Yeah, I just recently played through that after a friend gave me a bunch of crap about not playing it because I'm a big comic fan and I don't really like to play video game or comic-based video games. But he gave a bunch of crap about it, and I'm glad that he did because I've turned on my PS5 all of like 4 times, and one of those times happened to be to finish Spider-Man 2, and I appreciate it a bunch. But it's definitely like a game I would hold up as the developers 100% appreciate their customer. Absolutely. They are just trying to tell a story. They know what they are, and bam, they appreciate the content. They treated Spider-Man well. Like, just a great example of a game that other developers should look at, just as far as appreciating the people that they're targeting. And I gotta say, every time you speak, Jason, I think mentally I level up because you keep hitting words. I'm like, man, what? I gotta look this word up. It's awesome.
I've been doing that.
Yuri always says that to me as well. Yuri says that like, there's another one of Jason's word of the day. It's like I don't realize I'm just dropping random words in.
Add that to my vocabulary. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, and as Shadow is saying in the chat, certain games when they are perfectly tell their story and end, like this War of Mine in FTL, they're great to come back to and enjoy. So I could still come back to like this War of Mine, even though it's a very succinct, it's a very specific time frame and story, but it's a very nice experience. So if you want to just experience that kind of mixture of base building survival with a very harrowing story, if I want to feel a little depressed today, I can go to this War of Mine and I can get that in a nice dose, and it finishes. It's like a good series. A good series has an ending. A lot of series do not write with endings in mind and will infinitely scale themselves because you get more episodes, you get more funding.
One thing I do want to touch on, though, before we move on to the next giveaway, is one of the comments Dom made was about indie games not doing the service approach. And while this is an interesting point, right? So yes, a lot of people think of indies as, we all have our backlog of 500 indie games. You can always get around to them. It's always fine, whatever. But the unfortunate reality is of indie game sales and the way that sort of cycle works. You only get to launch once, really. Now, there's like a small asterisk there on whether or not you can have a relaunch with DLCs and various stuff. But truth be told, I forgot the exact percentage, but like greater than 50% of all revenue your game will earn will be like in the launch window, because what people forget about is over the course of development, you're building up a collection of followers, right? You have a Discord, you have your email collection, and the most vocal fans are the people who are following your development cycle. And so when you launch, they're the people who buy your game. That's not to say that you won't find supplementary markets. Like when you release on a console, you can often get another 20-30% on top of it. But realistically, a studio will live or die based on the sales of its initial launch of whatever their indie game is. And so the short answer to that is what I'm getting at is if you don't sell well on your launch of your game, that you mightn't have enough to sustain you for the time required to get a second wind on whatever that would be to continue your studio. So, and you also can't change prices. A good example of this is Iron Lung, which just recently increased their price by a bit and everyone freaked out. They changed it from like $6 to $8 or something like small like that. And people had a problem with it because that's the expectation, right? You can never increase prices, you can only lower them. And so you have to release your indie game at a price point that matches everyone's expectations for the hours of development time. And then you can only ever go down from there. And most people will buy it on launch. And so, yeah, that cycle is going to kill you effectively. Like unless you really have to build up to your launch and you have to sell well when it comes out.
Same thing with RimWorld. Despite, I would say, its price increases and Iron Lungs being very fair, you're developing a game and it's getting major features and improvements over time. But every time it has a price increase, people freak out. How dare they increase the price? It's literally not the same game as it was when it was being charged for $20. I understand why live service exists, and really it's a way for the developer to regularly like monetize over time, continual development work, to keep building up and adding content to it. It's just going more predatory has a lot of rewards for as minimal content adds as possible, meaning either a small mechanic or a cosmetic. But in the best world, it can actually be a nice interplay of mechanics and development time. It's just often abused because there's a lot of reward for abusing it and not a whole lot of downside.
I agree. It kind of reminds me of the video that I did earlier this week that pissed a lot of people off about the indie games and getting into AAA. I was trying to make a video just telling people that when they're looking at game jobs, that they should also consider AAA companies and AA companies because they're a great source of getting paid while you're working and not having to worry about going broke, but also lots of other benefits like getting to talk to and work with a lot of other professional
veterans.
Right? Yeah, you get to
network. Building a network is probably the biggest one there. You get contacts, people like your work, they remember you, and then when you want to do something in the indie space, they'll support you.
Well, hey, the good news is
a
lot of those AAAs have now all been fired, so they're probably looking for work, and you'll find them at indie studios, so you can meet them there instead.
I will say they kind of are.
That's low, man.
Well,
as dark as it is, that
the
is
ones
true.
that go make a lot of those indie studios. So I found that most of the time, the ones with these bigger indie studios that tend to be successful, a lot of the time have some people who made a lot of money off of doing AAA stuff already, and now they want to go put together their own thing. They want to start their own studio. I've seen a ton of that. I mean, Salim's probably seen way more than me, even just people going off and starting off new studios constantly. Oh. Anyway, Salim, you had a question for. Let's do a giveaway of the Shadowed Souls Idle Actions pack. I've linked it. I'll pop it up one more time, but it's in the description as well. If you want to win this, you got to answer Salim's question. Do you want to ask the question?
Sure. It's a little bit lengthy, but name the person who was responsible for creating the first external storage-based video game console. This same person is also credited with founding the studio that created the first video games to use 3D glasses.
I have no idea what the answer is.
And he's a personal hero of mine when it comes to the video game industry.
Dom said the Blizzard postings are a sea of senior positions right now. I've seen a lot of senior level game dev positions popping up recently, and I've seen even a lot of mid-level remote job popping up for game devs. I haven't been like super actively looking, and I've talked to a lot of people who've said that the industry was really difficult right now, but I keep seeing job postings in my email constantly now.
It's a little bit of both. So one thing to bear in mind is this is the worst time for you to look for work, period.
Oh, yeah.
Or at the end of the year, December.
2 years ago, I was telling everybody, now's your chance. Like, if you want to go get some crazy job, like, everybody's hiring for everything. They're desperate and they're paying way too much. Go get a job now.
Like, stacked on top of the mass layoffs, stacked on top of the restriction of like startup capital, which means startups are not over hiring the way they used to, on top of we're cooling down from COVID rates, on top of it is literally December, the end of the year. Most companies are not actively hiring or even looking at their listings. Right now is the worst time for you to look at listings and use that as a comparison. On a macro scale, when you look at like a lot of established companies, programming positions generally have like more senior positions that are a bit evergreen. Those will be the ones you see regularly listed. You need to find specific time frames where they're hiring for things that are not immediately senior. So junior internships, these stepping stones, and the more of these stepping stones you have, the more you'll start to see both visible positions, but the real market of positions. There was a video, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a video I had seen from like the Prime Engine's channel. It was a really great video talking about where a lot of the new market positions or engineering positions are opening up, and it's internal referrals.
Oh, yeah.
So if you know someone and it's a not listed position, getting to know people and being able to find, hey, we actually are thinking about hiring someone for this position. You immediately have those skills. Would you like to interview for it before it's even posted? That's where a lot of positions are available. So having that network is even more important. For reference, that's how I've done like my last 2 positions is I applied for it before they were even posted because someone needed those skills. I had them and I was connected through to them. So do not underestimate that.
I think it's the number one way to get jobs. Knowing somebody there, like it helps more than pretty much anything. So, what was the answer? Michael got the answer.
Yep.
I don't know.
Jerry Lawson. He headed up the team that made the Fairchild Channel F, which is basically the first like real cartridge-based console. He's just a black engineer at that time that just like the guy just thought differently, and they had a problem, and he came up with a solution. It's worth reading about his history and stuff. I discovered him, when my dad was in prison. We found out I was in video games, and he just sent me the article on his death. And I still have that article, and that's how I discovered him. And yeah, it's just like very interesting to think about just some random guy in a unit called the Fairchild Channel F, which also has an interesting history, is the first cartridge-based console. And then the 3D glasses thing, I didn't even know about that till recently researching him. So that's also like a cool kind of side note as far as someone who pioneered significant stuff within the industry. So yeah.
Very much so. There was Google had a day dedicated to him, and that's where I started to read into it because they had it was such a cute little mini game on the front page. One thing I will say, really love those Google tie-ins. I've learned about random famous people, history, and other events just from clicking on the Google homepage. So that's really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Michael Cuddy is a winner.
That's where my automation has killed me, because it's been years since I've actually ever seen the Google front page, because I automate my way straight to the search results.
Sometimes it's about the journey, not the destination. Take a walk.
Oh, missing out. All right, did we already give away the forest environment?
Nope.
I don't think so.
No. Okay, let's do this one.
Familiar.
Let's do this one next. Let's Salim, can you ask an EverQuest related question about a zone that's foresty?
That's
I don't know. This is a forest pack, so you got an EverQuest related
name the forest that was happy in the day and unhappy at night.
All right, you got the answer to that one. Get the forest environment dynamic nature pack.
Nobody's gonna know this, man.
No, somebody will know it.
You probably don't even know it.
You don't know it?
You don't know it.
The forest that was... I should know it.
You absolutely should know this one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. It actually has a cool name, too. Come on, man.
The Moody Forest?
No. Wow, someone said Nectalos. Wow, someone definitely put EverQuest. But that's not it.
I have lots of EverQuest trivia.
Dustin got it.
All right.
Dustin, our EverQuest expert.
You want to explain that forest real quick?
Yeah, just during the daylight hours, like the population was like little stuff like bees and random stuff. But then at night, it was all undead and high level. So it went from like level, because it was right next to Newbie area, the Halfling Newbie area. And I think it went from like level, I want to say like 5 to 10 during the day. And then at night, it's like level 40 skeletons. And
that reminds me of a George MacDonald story, Fantasties or something like that.
Fantasties. What's
George MacDonald. It's a fantasy. It's like he was He was like a big inspiration for C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis picked up one of his books at a
Gotcha.
train station or something, and that's where he got kind of hooked on fantasy.
It is a funny mechanic, though. I do love the idea of that. Don't worry, it's a newbie-friendly area. Don't stay too long.
EQ had a lot of that. I mean, that was one of the things that I feel like still a lot of I don't feel like a lot of games get right. It did a really good job of giving you reasons to play together with higher level players and reasons to interact and not just kind of steamroll through in solo mode. Like there was good reason even as like a high level player to interact with low level ones sometimes, and you had a lot of that is kind of foreshadowing of what's coming on and like wanting to come back to that area once you're a little bit higher and they're a little bit stronger. I don't know. I feel like EQ just this is the last game that I played that did a really good job with that, and everything else.
I have to say,
watered down. Go ahead.
As someone who never really played MMOs that much, like I played like a couple of things, but not really anything particularly interesting. I love researching those kinds of topics, and so Josh Drive Hayes has the whole series where he plays MMOs from all the MMOs for like hours long, really detailed breakdowns, and it's fascinating from someone like myself on the outside of that particular genre, seeing how they coalesce, right? Because to your point, some of the patterns get propagated to future games, some ideas get stolen from others, and then other ones water down to like the basic mechanic, and you can just see the entire life cycle of what moves between different games and what's easy to develop. And I find if you're interested in that kind of thing, checking out those like Josh Strife Hayes videos on the Was It Good MMO stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, you can see it's actually kooky because I also play FF11 a bunch. And I remember that Square like brought Brad out there to talk to him about EverQuest because they were making FF11 MMO. And you can see that they were absolutely inspired by EverQuest because it's just as brutal as EverQuest was, with some added extra brutalness in the way that their combat and stuff works. So it's like kooky to you're kind of getting the same experience. You're just getting this like other translation of it. It's a good translation of it on the other side. So it's like fun to play both. But yeah, of course, things like Galaxies. It's a different take on MMO stuff because Ralph Coster is a dreamer, and just the way that it has a similar experience because it could be just as brutal. I mean, permanent item loss when durability went to 0 and stuff like that. But the fact that you can build entire factories, that you can have a city, that you have a political system, that you go to a bar and hang out and have a dancer dance for you to restore your ham bar. All these like really subtle things that people were like, there's no way in hell this is going to work together. And it works. And it's like a super immersive experience that is completely and wholly different from like an EverQuest experience, but still just as deep and immersive. And also there are no pop-ups to go to market. There's no like, come back and play and open this box. There's none of that. You just wanted to log in and play and just have fun. Yeah, really good stuff. Old school design stuff, just so much fun. And it's sad that it cannot be successful today unless you have a lot of money and you can invest heavily in marketing.
I feel like Ashes of Creation's trying to do
Ashes
that.
is trying, but Ashes is, I know, I think 4 people on that team now. No, more like 5 or 6. And it's like perpetual development. They have the money, so they can take it slow. They can make decisions. They can pivot. Thankfully, they have the money. So I'm hoping that they're able to pull it off. Stuff that I'm hearing, it seems like they're definitely trying to get close to that dream. But man, I don't know when that's going to happen. But I am hopeful it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, me too. Let's do another EverQuest related question. I got that rider code I wanted to give away. So give away a 6-month rider code for another EverQuest question. Let's keep it simple. List off. This is going to be simple and require you to type a lot. List all of the classes available at launch.
Oh, what?
In one chat message.
That's not
all
simple.
the player class. Huh?
That's not simple.
Yeah, it is. It lists off every player class available at
There were
launch.
like
Requires
16
lots of time.
classes at launch. What are you crazy?
Was it 16?
There were a bunch of classes.
There
at
weren't
launch.
16. There was like
16
there were
probably
12,
not.
right?
Okay, 12. Either way, it's still not. It's still a small number.
Have them name 4. Just to make it a bit fair.
No, 4's too short. I need them
There were a
all.
whole lot of classes in EverQuest.
Yeah. Bard, Beastlord, Berserker, Cleric, Druid, Enchanter.
Beastlord and Berserker are definitely not launch.
Oh, nope, those are wrong. Yeah, I know. This is why it's easy because you can tell which people just copied and. This is not simple. Do they all fit in a single comment? I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, they all fit. This is a terrible question, but I like it. Anybody can get the full correct list.
And Muhammad's, even though he's listing a bunch of classes, he's still missing a chunk that were
Missing some. So we got Cleric, Monk, Necro, Paladin, Druid,
actually,
Enchanter.
no, wait.
This is going to be like the hardest question to judge.
Maybe there were a lot less than I thought. I could have swore there were like double digits. But that list seems fairly close.
On launch, yeah, there was Bard,
Oh yeah,
Cleric, Druid,
Bard.
Enchanter, Magician,
yeah.
Monk, Necro, Paladin, Ranger,
Oh, they don't have mages.
Rogue,
They don't have
Shaman, Warrior, Wizard. 13 total. Oh, and Shadow Knight, 14 total. Yeah. So anybody got all 14 of them?
Well, you just gave the answer, so
I know. Well, I figured somebody had to have typed them up. Bard, Cleric, Druid, Enchanter, Dustin.
I don't know what Enchanger is.
I've never seen an Enchanter before.
Disqualified.
Magician, Monk, Necro, Paladin, Ranger,
Yeah,
Rogue, Shadow Knight, Shaman, Warrior. I think that's right. Is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Was Dustin the first one?
Enchanger.
Or did Rune get them all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, I missed one.
No,
wait.
Joseph, I wasn't.
I'll go up one more above. Let's see, did Mr. Nev beat him? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, yep. It looks like you might have won here, huh?
I mean, but no spaces, man. I mean, I don't know what a Royal, Rogue, Monk, Ranger, Paladin, Shadow Knight, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Shaman, Wizard, Magician, Enchanter, Necromancer class is. I don't think that class existed there.
Oh, wait. Did Rune get it way up here?
Some spaces.
Did I miss it? No, because I got Beastlord in this one.
Yeah, that was the
one.
first one.
So, Mr. Nev, their Neve wins. Congratulations, and send you that Rider code. If you haven't used Rider, by the way, it's freaking amazing. I still use it constantly. It's like my day to day. Ever since Kyle's the one that convinced me. By the way, so name was Kyle.
Yeah.
He for like years he was like, "Yeah, you should really try Rider," and I was like, "I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later." And yeah, finally did, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm addicted." So we'll do some.
What's funny with Rider is I'm actually going the other way for one reason only, which is I'm so dependent on Rider that I'm using it for all of my stuff with Unity that I don't like that. So I'm actively starting to use VS Code with Unity a little bit just so I have a backup option because I'm so spoiled with all of the features of Rider that it's become my standard for every time I use it.
Now, wasn't it you that posted the question asking if anybody had gone from Rider back to VS Code and why?
Yeah. I wanted to see if there was any kind of diehard VS Code fans in particular, because I never really gave VS Code a good shot. Because when it came out, it was competing against, again, the likes of Sublime Text, that kind of thing. And it was a really good, lightweight version of Visual Studio. But around that time, Rider was available, and I just jumped ship to there instead. And so I never gave it much of a chance. And then for people using it for lightweight web stuff, NeoVim is a lighter weight version of that again. And so I never found a good cause to use it. And so I've been kind of peppering it in because it is good. It's slower than something like a NeoVim, but it's infinitely faster than something heavier like a full IDE. So I kind of feel like I need to give it a fair shake in my roster of tools.
I enjoy Visual Studio Community mostly just because I've gotten used to it. I actually started with MonoDevelop back when that was still supported with
wow.
Unity.
Yeah.
So there was
I had to use it too. It sucked, but I had to for a while.
From my perspective, that was as good as spyware whenever Unity installed that as horrible bloat. I hated it so much.
as like a 14-year-old who doesn't even know what IDE stands for yet. It's like, oh, okay, this is how I input code. Dude, what do you mean MonoDevelop doesn't work? I don't want to change. I'm so like, okay, now I understand what IDE is. I appreciate this so much more. So I've been I enjoy it. And I have used Writer as well. Writer is a very smooth experience and a very streamlined one. And I would even say, now that I've been playing around with Unreal more, you should be using Writer for Unreal because there is so much friction using VS Code. I'm sorry, just Visual Studio with Unreal. But for Unity, I generally enjoy it. It's free. It has all of the tooling and features that I need. I've gotten used to the customization of toolbars, like other features and macros. Visual Studio is a lot. But if you can kind of weave your way through whatever particular features you need, it's a very pleasant experience and a very nice experience to have. Your Solution Explorer, your test bed. It basically does the same thing, but it does it free. So if you're okay with a little extra overhead and a little bit of jank, it gives you everything you need.
Yeah, VS Code's fun. I jump in between Visual Studio and VS Code now, and I like to do Visual Studio for like .NET stuff, which makes me want to pull my hair out. But yeah, I've been using VS Code a lot for the proprietary language at Wonderstorm, and then also for learning Node.js, front and back end stuff. And VS Code is great. Simple, straightforward. I thought they were releasing a writer for another language. They just have what, C# and what else now?
No, it supports a ton of stuff.
Do they really? Okay.
Yeah, all the web stuff. Yeah, they got tools for all of them. They got.
Okay, all right.
As a general rule, anything that supports C# doesn't really quote unquote support C#. It supports .NET for in general, which means you're also going to be supporting F# and all the other stuff in that
Visual Basic, all that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
also, VS Code just for in general anything that's web related, individual text editor. Once
that's
more,
why I've always
Vim's
installed
better.
it. Even when I'm not using it as an editor, I've always used it as my like de facto notepad for one reason only, which is that there's some really simple short plugins for things like Paolo Code to take snapshots of code in nice form factors, or the JSON to C# stuff. And most recently, I think I mentioned before, they have a complete replacement for Postman as like a plugin that's just vastly simpler.
Oh, really?
And yeah, there's one like Postman is garbage now in my opinion. I really hate it using it. It's so bloated. There's one called Thunder Client, I think, and it's just a lightweight tab that does everything the original Postman used to do. Standard posts and gets, no mess, no fuss.
You said it's called Thundercloud?
A Thunder Client, I think. Let me check actually because I have it here.
Yeah, I use Postman pretty extensively now, so yeah.
If it makes that simpler, you don't have to open up a whole other application to do.
Nice.
Yeah, Thunder Client.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
it's really nice. Like it feels like original. When you remember, it was original. Postman was just a browser thing, which just had effectively 4 tabs.
Yeah.
Click the thing, do a post and get. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Then they started bloating it with, collections and interweb.
I assume they've got a subscription by now.
Oh yeah.
You get an ad when you do a post, and you have to.
Every GET request gets you also a whole ad. Hey, if you'd like to know more about this,
get some credits. Get your post credits. I would expect it. By the way, a couple things I forgot to share was the pizza in the title is this. There's a free modern restaurant pack that's a pizza shop. It's got pizza in it. I stole the picture right from there, and it was immediately the only thing that I saw when I looked at it. I didn't even realize it was actually a full-on restaurant. I thought it was just a pizza shop because I saw the pizzas there.
That's making me hungry. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, Jason. You're doing this.
I know. I'm getting hungry too. We also have some more stuff to give away. We've got this big bundle we'll do in just a few. The environment bundle, the big one from Paladin Nature Manufacturer.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, it's freaking awesome. We'll do that one in just a little bit, but let's do a smaller one with the World Stream or two. Anybody got another good question, or Pal, you got one?
Yeah, we can do the question. What is the oldest nature manufacturer asset on Asset Store?
Oh, oldest nature manufacturer asset on the Asset Store. Go in chat. Go. And get ready for the big ones too. We'll do those in just a few too. I got a couple. I'll do another Odin code in a few. And Greg,
the one,
got some more. Go ahead.
The question for the environment bundle, I think, will be interesting.
Okay, that'll be a good one. And Greg, do you have one ready for Highland Panic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, people are putting their answers in for that. While we're talking VS Code, just a couple of suggestions for plugins. If you haven't tried it yet, the Git Lens plugin from the Git Kraken team is fantastic. Not only is it a really nice visual, like it's nicer than a lot of actual dedicated Git clients, but the coolest feature, which is a small thing, is there's an AI button to basically describe a commit. So, like, if you're going to write I use conventional commits as standard. Nice. But if you've made a bunch of changes and you're like, what did I do? You can literally press a button. It'll read your script changes and says, oh, you did this. And it's like, that is such a nice start when you're writing a giant commit.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Does it do that? Does it also do commit messages since they have like a short character?
Yeah, it has a bunch of options. I've only used a couple of the features. The main thing I use it for actually is it has a really nice visual tree. I really hate a lot of the default one that comes with VS Code is horrible, but the one that when this one has a really nice like visible tree, it's much easier to kind of see what's going on, do the git blame stuff, and it has a bunch of like extra panels you can open that do different sort of views into the code. It's even got a timeline view, which is really cool. You can like scrub a script backwards in time and look at different versions of stuff. There's a lot of like nice features.
Wow.
Is there a Git Lens extension for Visual Studio?
I assume so. I mean, my understanding is a lot of the plugin structure is similar between the two, and Git Kraken as a company are really good at pulling people to their side. So I'd be amazed if they didn't have a matching.
Yep, I'm looking at a Git Lens one for Visual Studio right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we have a winner. It was Sovereign. Yeah. Yeah, it's realistic Grass Pack 1. It was May 2014.
Nice.
Then a few months later was the Realistic Click Pack, July 2014, and WordStreamer, which is the oldest pack that we haven't updated, because there's no possibility to search for the oldest pack, there's only possibility to search for oldest updated pack. WordStreamer was 1 year later, 2015 May.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't updated since I think 2018 because it's for Unity 2018 and older. Yeah,
makes sense. So, out of curiosity, what was the origin for the first Nature Manufacture pack, the Grass pack? What kind of kicked that off?
The origin is for the Bart, because Bart was the first person that worked on Nature Manufactured. He was doing MMO game as his first game that he developed, and he was creating some assets for that game. So he also created some assets and released them on the Asset Store. Yeah, the first Grass was just textures, and the Realistic Tree pack was with the old tool for creating trees in Unity. Yeah, there was this old possibility to create your own trees.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the history of like 90% of the assets on the Asset Store. So I was working on my game, ... So anyway, I took a piece of it and made an asset.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Andrew too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So we'll do the environment pack in just a minute. I've got your question ready. We'll do that in a second. It's going to be a hard one. And let's see, what else did we have? There were a couple other things I think I wanted to remember.
One of the last plugin, because it's really small, but I think this is one that blows my mind. Like, I really recommend it to everybody. It's really dumb. It's just called Image Preview. It's like, oh, okay. But basically, in the gutter on the sidebar of any file which has a URL which links to an image, it'll put a little icon of the image like resolved. And when you hover over it, it gives you the preview hover for the image. It's so good with web stuff. Anytime you've linked to any kind of images, it's just so nice to be able to see them without having to like, wait, what URL did that image resolve to? It's just a small plugin, but like really satisfying.
What's it called again?
Just image preview.
Is it by like Kiss Tomas?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Kiss Tomas. Yeah.
Awesome. And that to the ever-increasing Obsidian list of plugins Jason has recommended.
Don't get me started on Obsidian plugins. That's a whole different plugin.
Yeah, we got to go over. I've been using Obsidian for the last few months, and I've been avoiding the plugins so far. I need to figure out which ones to actually start using. I've been.
I almost feel like that should be a stream. We should just do like an hour and
Probably.
a half of somebody share their screen, and I'll just be like, "Here's a million cool things you can do." You know?
Yeah, that would be interesting. That actually sounds like fun too.
So Sovereign won that previous question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just responded to him.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Sovereign was the winner. All right, so Greg, let's do another Highland Panic.
All right.
You got a Highland Panic related question, or do you have something else
Yep.
already ready to go?
Yeah. So what physical card game was Highland Panic inspired by?
Ooh.
And it has come up multiple times on
It
various
has.
shows. So
Yeah.
You don't need to be a lore master, you just need to be a good listener.
I've never heard it, so I have no idea.
Well, you'll have to get a key from Greg and go play.
Not Hearthstone.
Oh no, I don't.
Not
I'm
Uno. Not
sure.
Goldfish. Nope.
Not MTG.
It would
I
be
don't
so
think, I
awesome
don't
if it
think
was
people are going to get
Go
this one.
It would be so great if it was Go Fish.
Competitive Go Fish.
All right. I don't know if I should give Sinister this or not because it's sort of tangentially related.
No, we know that's not what you're looking for. So that doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the
And
hell was
Jeff
nerd?
Lynch is kind of on the right track. There it goes. There it goes.
There it
Dustin
is.
Taub, but he already owns it. So,
So good, Mike.
so Dustin, are you okay if we give it to Mike?
Strip
Oh,
poker.
it was strip poker.
It would also be awesome if it was
Yeah,
based on
so
Strip
it's based
Poker.
on Dutch Blitz, which is also there's another almost identical game called Nerds. So Sinister is on the right track there, and it's basically a multiplayer solitaire. So Jeff Lynch was kind of in the ballpark.
Nice. Well, congrats. And if you haven't checked it out, there's a link in the description of all of the show episodes. So go check it out on Steam. Try it out. See what Greg's built. It's all built in Unity. He's talked about it a lot on stream too. And you can go subscribe to his channel and then see some more of that development process and the whole thing. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you're into building games or card games, especially because that's you literally building multiplayer card games. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, there are multiples of the features in that game, like it goes through in detail. Like in the actual videos, that's really fascinating to watch. So I highly recommend checking out the channel.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. Let's do. I've got one more. I think I have a couple more writer codes. Let's do one more. Salim had a general game dev question. What's the question for another Odin and Specter? I said writer, didn't I? Odin and Specter code.
It's a game history question, not game dev question specifically. But what game console pioneered the D-pad?
Ooh, I'm not sure what the answer is to
Also,
this.
fun history behind this one.
I think I have an idea, but even I'm not.
We got to type it in chat.
I don't know if it's fair for me to compete. I guess so. No, sure. We'll blast it out there.
We got Atari, Nintendo, Funcom, N65.
N65 is the winner now.
I was like, okay, that would have been a great one. Master System and Television. Oh, is it the MetaQuest 3 headset?
Man, yeah. I think that's
I'm just
it.
going through all my old console knowledge.
Oh, do we not have a right answer yet?
Nope.
It's not
Not
Commodore.
even close.
Dreamcast was way after Nintendo's.
Oh, okay. I know what the answer is, and I'm not going to type it. It wouldn't be fair.
Not even close.
Hmm.
Just as a hint, the gamepad was on the NES. So if you're saying stuff after the NES, it's not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got a winner. Alexander Franz.
The Game & Watch. Or
Yeah.
the
What?
Game & Watch.
Where?
Yeah.
Oh, Game and Watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was
And
this?
Phew, this is one of the
developer-
ones I actually knew. I was like, I think I know this one.
And I'm gonna mess up his name, but Gunpei Yoki, he got the idea for the Game & Watch from watching businessmen on subways play with their calculators, and that idea turned into the D-pad, which is probably one of the most recognizable controls schemas today. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I would say as well, as a side note, looking into the history of the Game & Watch series is actually fascinating. There's a lot more Game & Watches than people realize. There's
Yeah.
literal watch Game & Watches, among other
Yep.
things. But
Yep.
the really fascinating part is the original button layout was non-standardized. So the early ones had like wacky layouts. People were throwing out all things, and it only started to homogenize later when it was like mass produced. But there's
Yeah.
actually a really fascinating look at the design of those and how they were changing over time and how they evolved into cartridge-based ones. And like the Game & Watch as a series is not just the little rectangular cartridge. It has a whole long history of complicated development and who the market was for and what it was. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, whenever I think about D-pad stuff, I get into this. I have like this huge issue with controls in games that it goes to like appreciating an individual who plays on like multiple platforms, and the fact that face buttons aren't standardized, X, BA, whatever, flipped positions, cross, square, circle, triangle. I always appreciate a game that makes those controls agnostic. So instead of showing an A, a B, or whatever, they show the face buttons and the position of the button for it. So I use all kinds of controllers. I go from 8-bit DOS to Xbox or whatever. I use Nintendo format. I use whatever. Just based on what the game feels like it should play. That's what I use. And having to, if I'm playing an action RPG or something like that, having to take the moment to think about which controller I'm playing and where that button is drives me nuts. But as soon as I see something that shows position of the button, I don't have to, like, you take that completely out. And games that do it 100% appreciate it. There are not a lot of them that do that, and I don't understand why. Because from the developer side, when you have to consider, okay, what controller do they have put in? This is what we have to show. Versus we can just show this universal input. It seems like a much easier thing to do, and it's instantly appreciated. But people just don't do it. They just assume that if you're on console, you're using an Xbox controller, and which I think is bad, especially with how prevalent 8-bit DOS controllers have become for people, and the fact that you can just plug in a PS5 or PS4 controller into your computer. It drives me nuts. So one thing, if you're developing a game that's using a controller and you want to make someone like me smile, consider that type of stuff when you're doing your button pop-ups and stuff like that.
On a side note, that's why one of my favorite features of the Odin is it literally has an operating system level toggle switch between Xbox mode and Nintendo mode, and which literally just A/B swaps because of the standardization for the different things. So it's like the fact that it's such a common thing that it like supports both sides is very funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
The agnostic display though, it's just instant visual top button. All right, cool. It's just the same as showing a D-pad, right? Show up, left, up, down, left, right. You're basically showing the same thing. It's a face button because they're both effectively D-pad configuration. So why not do it for both?
What I'm curious of is if you were to take a remapping and you were allowed for control remapping, could you remember where the directional position is of the button? I guess you could just compare it to like what controller are they using, and if A is mapped. I know where A is on this controller configuration, so just highlight.
Yeah,
that.
if you have the ability to do the swapping, like Jason is saying, then you know where the button is, right?
Yeah, so it
You
really
just know whether
depends on
it's
like
it's A or B in this case, depending on the controller.
so generally it depends what protocol you're going to be using. Normally they go with the HID compliant connection, which basically means almost all devices are roughly mapped as button index numbers 1, 2, 3 to whatever number, and then the different hats and stuff. So what you do is, like, if you know the controller type, you can basically say, 1 equals X button or whatever, and that way a non-standard controller will auto map. It just might be wonky for buttons, but known ones can have overrides for standardized versions. So a good example of this, while it doesn't come naturally with the Unity input system, which is still pretty good, I still actually use it because it's out of the box. But if you want to support all that stuff, use Rewired. And Rewired is another input provider on the store. And not only do they have support for all the same kind of stuff, because to be honest, Unity's input system is a clone of Rewired, which again, they cloned the C input. Like it's a long-standing cycle of stuff. But the long story short, the one in Rewired comes with auto mappings from stuff all the way back to racing wheels and like the original HOTAS stuff. So like, it doesn't matter what, if you want to have hyper specific inputs per device, they'll do it all for you. And it's just maps you can auto download and then configure specifically. And so they've got more support than anything else, and fallbacks to things like X input if you just want like a broad capture for any device, and custom overrides for things like VR controllers and gyroscopes and whatever. So if you do want to like be really targeted, currently I don't think there's a better input provider for that than Rewired. I think they do the most because they have like a community sourced version of this from years. Like they've had tons and tons of like Saytech joypads and stuff that are like supported like, or Novint Falcons, like stuff that nobody's heard of is like actually got automatic mappings for.
Is so Steam's whole remapping thing, I think they recently changed in the past 6 months to be even more extensive. Does that cause any issues on the development side? Because I mean, I don't know how that thing works, but it is kooky at times. It seems like it might be a
I'm
headache.
not sure. Like, now again, don't quote me on this because I do not know. But my understanding is they're emulating and replacing the inputs from the device, which means that they're basically doing it before it hits your game. So my understanding is that it allows you, like, agnostic to the game itself, they're basically simulating and swapping those different, and there's, like, as you said, there's profiles that people have made. So I guess, like, Valve's answer to this is the game shouldn't have to support it. The idea is that the community can do Steam profiles irrespective of the game. But yeah, to your point, I do think that it's probably a good idea to be aware of them. But I think as time moves on, we're going to get to the point that games will just have generic HID compliant input, and then all of this stuff will be handled by external mappings and providers, I would guess.
Yeah, then you just got to make sure the overlays are working, which, yeah, again, if the overlay is agnostic and just directional, then you don't have to worry about it.
That way it takes a load off of literally everyone's plates, because you have a nice community basis. Your UI is agnostic. Everyone wins here.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it's so simple. Yeah, no.
In fact, the one above that, which blows my mind still, is, so anyone who's into the emulation scene for retro games, RetroArch is already a marvel. The fact that it's basically a host device that supports DLL versions of all of the prior emulators, that's already cool. But on top of that, there's now things like EmuDeck. And if you've not used EmuDeck, it's an app you can install, which will install individually all of the separate emulators and configure the controllers appropriately for you on all of the different devices, and support things like setting resolutions per devices and stuff. And it'll install RetroArch and configure RetroArch for all the appropriate configurations for each platform. And so basically you press like 6 buttons and you get the equivalent of what would have taken a week's worth of learning for like which devices and which stuff and how to hook it up and all the things. And it's, it really has become like 3 clicks to have like a really competent and well set up auto scraped art emulation system, you know?
I just got my Odin 2 dock randomly because I got my Odin 2 a while ago. And
is it any good? Because I've been looking at, like, again, the Odin 2. There isn't an Odin 2 dock yet, is there? There's only the original Odin dock.
Well, I just got this in the mail, and this is the one I got because I have the other one from.
Oh, okay. I honestly didn't know there was an Odin 2 dog. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I
'cause
just got this. Like I said, they ship stuff randomly. I'm like, what is this? And I open it, I'm like, oh man, this thing's awesome. It's got the side USB support for mouse and keyboard and all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna be cracking this thing open while I'm on.
Well, I'll need a review because I have a dock. I have a JSX1 here somewhere. I don't know if I have it on hand. I have a dock that was for the Steam Deck, and unfortunately, it's top loaded for the USB-C, which is a real pain in the ass because the Odin is an Android style bottom loaded one, and you can't prop it up appropriately.
I would like to say for listeners, we're not talking about the Inspector Odin. This is a different Odin. Now the handheld.
Yes.
ODYN,
Yeah.
Because I realized, oh wait, that could be if you're just listening. Oh yeah, I got the Odin dock. The UI dock.
But yeah, I'm probably gonna mess with it over the next week or so. Because like the mouse keyboard support was, I'm like, man, that's actually pretty smart. Instead of having to sit here and sync a Bluetooth thing to it just to make the setup a lot easier and using the touchscreen.
Well, the sales pitch for I don't know if they've done it in the second dock, but the original dock also lets you plug in a hard drive into the dock itself.
Oh,
if you want
to you can do
so you can extend it.
Yep. I like the original dock because it had the GameCube plugs on the side, which this one obviously doesn't have, but it's much smaller. I can put it in my pocket.
Also not the chair, yes. We have Odin the game handheld, Odin the chair, and Odin the Inspector. Those are all very different Odin. And not the All-Father. That's the fourth Odin.
It is definitely confusing. Where's that little bag? There goes my hat. This hat does not fit my big ass head, by the way.
It's definitely large.
One last thing on that topic, actually, Slim, I'm curious, because as you said, you use like 8-bit DOE controllers and stuff. I'm curious, have you got or tried the King Kong 2 Pro controller, the Ghillie Kit one?
What is
so
it?
they're a company, Ghillie Kit, and they have their own cool third-party controller. It's called the King Kong 2, and they're coming out with the King Kong 3. I don't have the 2, but I've heard it was probably one of the better tier of that category. And I'm kind of looking forward to the third one. So I was just curious if you tried it, because that's probably the one I'm going to buy as my go-to. Because currently I use the PS5 controller for everything, but this one looks a bit more my style.
The controller that I'm in love with, that I basically have everywhere, is their Ultimate that comes with the cool little dock. I have one on. I have 4 computers set up at various places to play games, and then on my Switch I have one set up for that. Like, it's weight wise, response, like it's perfect, and I just love putting it in this little dock. Sits there, looks good. But I'll have to check this out because this looks like I'm always looking for like different cool controllers. And
is this it?
That's the one. Yeah, the King Kong.
Yeah. I like that gray too.
Yeah, it's got that like the Famicom-esque look, but the real thing is it's got the buttons support both the Switch style minus and plus. Oh, which keyboard's that?
It's the 8-bit DOE.
Oh yes, I saw that. The one that comes with the big buttons.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
One of my friends actually got that. It showed it to me.
It's like, and this is the Famicom color, which is probably my favorite color schema. I like it more than this. But it has like these 2 big macro buttons that are basically like the AB buttons on a Nintendo controller. It's a pretty awesome keyboard. It just came out, I think, like a couple months ago. So yeah, it's a fun.
So speaking of the Famicom colors, I'm really gutted. Is my original Odin was those colors, and it's fantastic. It's gorgeous. I really love the look of it. I decided to go fancy with the Odin 2, and I got the transparent blue one, and I kind of hate it. Like, I really like the other one, looks really slick, but it's like half the power of this new one. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy a third one just to get the good color again. But I am annoyed because I have the 2, and the nice one is not the good one. So yeah, lesson learned. From now on, I'm getting the Famicom colors.
That's fine. Oh, there were a couple questions I pinned earlier, like along the way, that were a bit more technical. That I totally forgot. If you guys happen to want to take a couple of those,
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me see. Here, actually, this is here's let's start with this one because it's directly on topic. Is it important to have gamepad UI controls in an indie game? The game follows a PC RPG MOBA style of inventory and abilities, including aiming. Should they revamp to a keypad? So I assume it's kind of mouse and keyboard. It sounds like. I mean, when I think MOBA, I think right click, left click, and a couple little hotkeys. But do you think gamepad support should be added?
I would consider your audience, like if you're selling your game with another type of game, and that game, historically has that support and people use it a bunch, that probably informs the answer there. And that's what I would look at.
Do what everybody else is doing in the
when you're talking about the user experience, yeah. I mean, if I play a bunch of other MOBA games and my expectation is that I can use a controller, and then you want me to play your game, like you have to consider that how many people are you potentially are falling off right away because they're not used to that controller schema in that particular style of game.
Do you think it should be added as like an optional thing though, or do you think it's not even worth the time there, assuming that it's not the default way to play? Do you think it's worth adding alternate ways to control these things?
Again, I guess it's difficult. Whatever is the most commonly used thing you have to support, right? I think in a mobile game, it's probably PC controls.
My hot take would be it's a little bit on the like, yes, ideally you should have both. It's kind of like accessibility options. You should have them, but it's completely understandable if you don't have the resources of a AAA studio to add. And honestly, if you just rely on the quote unquote input system automatic gamepad support, it's garbage. It won't it just out of the box. It's going to be a real nightmare because it won't tab over correctly to the right things. You have to do a lot of tweaking yourself. It's not impossible, but it's just the example that I go to is the studio Supergiant, who made Bastion. When they pivoted their games over and they made mobile versions of them, they completely ground up, redesigned all their UI for their games for touch. They didn't just port, a couple of buttons to match. They fundamentally reevaluated what the game played like on the platform. And even if it might cost you a little bit at launch, my personal take, again, this isn't even backed up by any numbers. This is just how I feel about it as a person. I think I would sooner see a game come out without gamepad support so that once they do decide to implement it, when they have time and resources, they do it properly and they engage with using inputs that match their game. Now, that being said, if your game is like a platformer game, people will expect gamepad first. So again, as what Salim was saying, if you're doing an RTS or whatever, you're going to lean into your audience playing predominantly keyboard and mouse or whatever. But if you're going to be doing a, roguelite or something, you're going to probably want to support gamepad out of the box. So because most people will expect that. But I would say whatever the non-standard input is, I don't think you need it out of the box. I just think you need to be aware that when you do implement it, quote unquote, implement it correctly.
Yeah,
I wish that From Software would have listened to you when they released Dark Souls 2 on PC and just not.
No, you just take the console version and just keep the exact same icons on PC. That works every time, right?
Oh man, because that was the epitome of unfun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And since it's a MOBA, you probably only really need to worry about keyboard and mouse to start with. When you do gamepad, you can do that later and do it well.
Are there MOBAs on? There are MOBAs on console, right?
I want to say yes, but none actually immediately come to mind.
Anybody know one in chat?
I think Smite, but Smite plays more like a third-person action.
Smite's definitely a MOBA.
Well, that actually brings up a good point.
It doesn't feel like a typical. It's not a top-down MOBA, so it's just that. And if you haven't played it before and you played MOBAs, you should definitely try it because it's very fun and it's got Thor and all the other gods and stuff.
I main Cthulhu, specifically Toon Cthulhu, because I like being a wacky character shooting Toon physics.
One thing I will say though, actually, to kind of counter my own point on that, is this day and age, the Steam Deck is as good as a new console platform, and if you are looking for sales, you are missing out a lot if you're not supporting it out of the box, because like legitimately people are rebuying games that they have on other platforms because they want to play them on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
And it is like, if your game supports being on the go, it's like a no-brainer. So you'll need gamepad support if you're going to be supporting the Steam Deck or whatever. And so I would say that like we're at a point now where you're probably going to lose more sales than you'd think by not doing it. So it's something to consider. Again, it comes down to your game type, but I would probably say
And obviously Steam Deck and Switch basically started that whole market of. I mean, I have a Lenovo Go, and what was the one before that? The Asus Rogue Ally.
Oh yeah, the ROG Strix.
Oh man, the Rogue Ally was definitely not a smart purchase, but the Lenovo Go, because it has detachable things and the whole mouse things you can play, it's actually pretty fun. It's a great little unit, solid. The controls feel good, but yeah, that whole market is, big. I mean, with the OLED Steam Deck, obviously people are investing heavily in it. So yeah, to your point, that is its own market. Funny enough.
On a personal level, I'm locked in on the Odin too. I think like I'm not going to get a PC based handheld, because as far as I'm concerned, the Steam Deck's good enough for on the go games. Unfortunately, it's not the new OLED one; it's the older one, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, I find myself only playing the Odin 2, because with all the good streaming services, I can literally stream from my PC with 3080 like directly onto it, and it does, and the latency is really low. Unless I wouldn't play multiplayer like competitive, but I can play any game I want in a high resolution on this like really lightweight
on your couch
10-hour battery thing compared to
Nice. What streaming service do you use, like Moonlight or?
I have like 4 different things installed. I have the Nvidia one, I have Moonlight, I have PS Play one. I have a bunch of, because I kind of prefer to use the one that the platform goes for.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, what's going on with your?
He's been derezzed.
What's happening? You look like you're like an old like Macy's Christmas Day parade.
I don't know. That's weird.
We were talking about retro games.
Yes, that's good. He's doing a retro broadcast filter.
At your local Macy's, buy the Game & Watch.
He's broadcasting using his Odin 2. Maybe that's what it is.
Streaming from an Odin 2. Interesting.
There you go.
Oh, okay, I'm back.
Okay, he's back to early 2000s.
Oh. Stuff. Oh, I lost all the chat. Oh, I still got the pinned questions at least. But I don't know what happened there. Everything seemed fine, but it was definitely not. Was there? Since I got dropped out, was there more on that, or you guys want to take some of these other questions?
No, keep going. Yeah.
If only your high was here for that one, though, about the Unity animation system.
I saw this. That's exactly what I was thinking. Poor URI. Yeah. So, will Unity ever get a good animation system?
No comment, because they're probably rocking with the one that they have.
I know they're working on something new. I don't know what it is or anything really about it though. And I don't. Yeah, I don't have enough complaints about the animation system to say when it's suddenly good versus bad. There are things I don't like about it, but yeah, I don't know that I'm qualified to judge a good versus bad animation system. Story.
Yeah, I'm. As for the actual state of animation systems, that's a no comment for me too, because I tend to defer that to the artists on the team. But I will say, a safe bet, if I was a betting man, would be everything is going to get a good animation system very soon once all of these standardized walking models are done. Like if you look at 2-minute papers, everyone is doing it now, and it's getting to the point where you can make some very good animation systems that are like able to adapt to all sorts of scenarios that look way more organic than a bunch of pre-baked animations. So I think like we're going to get to the point that there's going to be third-party providers, and everyone's going to clone them, and then it's going to get to everyone's going to have almost identical style systems. So probably yes, I guess it'll be my bet.
And then from there, you
And
can actually express more creatively on specific animations. Focus your effort on specific ones.
You're talking about like AI and stuff here, right? This is AI creating animations for
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
And
like
there's
they do
another
they do the
question here.
you basically keep you just have like a couple of base poses, and then it resolves the animation for you based on motion from different samples and the body types and stuff.
So it just interpolates between two poses, basically.
Oh no, this like will full on do the what, like for example, the impressive part is you could have an animation which looks really good, but it won't retarget it won't even retarget to like smaller models because bone shapes and leg lengths will lead to wacky animations. But then if you go one step further, you've got no chance of remapping a walking from a bipedal to like a quadruped or whatever. And so what these new systems do is they allow you to have an animation and they will actually remap them to the bone structure of the creature. So for example, you could take the same walk cycle and apply it to like a giant ogre and it'll walk slower and clunkier because that's what the bone structure is. So it's like it's gotten really crazy to the point that you can have like a bunch of pre-baked sword swings, but now you don't need 500 sword swings for different speeds and weights and sizes and characters. You can just have one or two and have the resolve based with the AI. So it's gotten very clever.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, that's probably my biggest, aside from like chat LLM stuff, which is already pretty neat. Animation development in AI is a big thing I want to see. 3D modeling would be nice, but it doesn't feel like it's there. There's progress, but it doesn't feel like that's going to hit maturation. That's a much longer term.
And the texture stuff is like, it should be easier, but it's just spitting out a lot of generic garbage. Like I don't know how much I like, without getting into a whole big thing on that. Like, if you really care about your game, you should hire a concept artist and actually create a look. Have a look before you even go down that road. The kind of stuff you're going to get out of AI generated stuff is like, it might be fine, but it'll be fine in a very homogenized way that will completely bury you in a market because of your screenshots for your game. So I guess, I agree. I think that's the animation stuff interests me, but a lot of the other stuff doesn't personally. And we've talked at length about how I don't really care about it for narrative or for AI interaction either. So for me, that exact one, just the animation resolving is like, that's the one that interests me from this whole new branch of AI stuff.
Consistent visual styling for your game, super important. Trusting that the AI seems odd. Thank you for saying hire a concept artist, because people just we talked about it before. Concept artists are they are so important.
Because way too many people, and for me to very casually shit on a lot of AI artists, have no artistic direction or intent or understanding. You just have the LLM spit you out something and you just think it's good enough, and it really shows. Please, for the love of all, have a concept artist or have an understanding of these concepts yourself before you really try to like make the ease tool, because it's kind of like anything you have automatically done. If you do not understand the principle or enough to like have a direction, you're going to generate the most mediocre and the most serviceable. And that's arguably worse than even being bad, because you activate nothing for an artist. It is.
And one thing, like I really want to hammer this home, because a lot of people are going to be like, I'm an indie, I can't afford people, I'm not going to pay for a person to draw me a picture. I'm like, honestly, of all of the things you could cut corners on, I would think you can legitimately even cut corners on other stuff like modeling and whatever, but do not cut corners on your look dev, because your look dev is going to be the thing that will get you. It's a screenshot. It's what people will look at. It'll be the consistency of your entire project. And it's not just the picture. It's like, it tells you what the colors are, what the standardization of the UI and the UX. It gives you a whole sense of like, what is the feel of this experience? And you can tell immediately if a game had a vision at the start, because what a lot of people don't realize is that hero image, like, you don't have to have them design your whole game. You don't have to have a concept artist draw every area in your game. You need them to draw like 3 images. Draw a large zoomed out overworld, draw a single example of like a first person. Obviously, if you have them on for longer, even better. But if you get them to just draw a few slices of your project, everyone on your team now has a visual image that everyone knows what they're doing. All of the modelers now have a good measure of what they're doing, all colors and textures. Like I cannot express how you will cut so much headaches out of your life if you have an image you can show people that not only tells you like scales and distances and how the game should feel. And it's like, a good concept artist is one of the most important roles in a project.
It's definitely important to invest at the beginning in the right things. People just see the fast track. They see the quick and easy way to get to the end. But man, some of that foundational stuff you just can't replace. You're using words like feel, right? You're talking about color. Color theory, is a thing. Like it's very regimented, and once you learn it, you can understand it. But in the end, like in order to get it right, you have to have that feel component. You have to understand why these colors work this way, why you want to use this over this, and that's all human. That's all emotion. That's all. Like, so you can't fast track some of the foundational things. And yeah, like concept art is 3 images. Yeah, like one of your biomes or what your world looks like. Like it's all like there. You put that on a wall. You put that somewhere, and people can look at it and say, okay, this fits in this box. Like this is defined versus a bunch of random images that look cool, but do these two even go together? Like I don't know.
And so many things are downstream from that. Like if you design it and it looks grungy and dark, your sound designer is going to pick different sounds. Your animator is going to pick different levels of bounce for the easing for the animations. The entire game structure will be based on it. Like if you have a more of a, like, imagine just taking a single painting in advance. I'm saying I'm making a game. It's first person. It has guns. You fight creatures. Okay, cool. If my concept artist draws Overwatch-esque or draws Counter-Strike-esque, how many decisions are different in that style? Everything from the animation to the art to the models to the textures to the whole thing. If you try to describe your game to somebody, you could use identically the same words for 90% of that conversation, and you're still not on the same page. And you're still going to have to go back and forth and get lots of work done and have things that don't quite sound right or look right. But if you can all look at an image and go, oh, I get it. I understand what this is. Like the amount of shortcuts you get just from like osmosis of people being on the same page.
The power of strong direction, because even for massive AAA games and other games, poor direction is often what is a cause for a lot of development woes. It can be a change of mechanics, a change of aesthetics. These conflicts you will feel, and it'll save you so much headache on development time, iteration time, if you're able to have consistent and strong direction.
That would never happen in a AAA place. It
Nope,
would never change
often
direction or change art style or decide they're going to be a free-to-play game or something else all of a sudden. Those things would never happen in the middle of development.
Why you dislike AAA?
Nobody would ever multiply all the numbers by 10 randomly because they were too small or anything like that.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Oh. Somebody asked how the giveaways are happening. We're just asking questions randomly and giving stuff away. And there was on this AI topic, there was a message here from StatsMock12. I'm trying to read that. It says, hey, Jason, I'm the developer of AI Engine. I'd love to provide another giveaway key. The asset allows you to control the Unity editor via ChatGPT. I've never used AI Engine, but I mean, if we got a key for it, we can give it away. So you guys have an AI related question you want to ask? Corvallis, you got to get AI question.
Yep. I thought of 5 and I'm like, should I wait? Here's a fun.
Yes, Corvallis, you want to ask an AI question, and then we'll get the winner of the key for AI Engine. I have to go check this one out. I haven't seen it yet.
Sure. Here's a real quick and easy one that is also easily Googleable. What does LLM stand for?
On a random note, while you talk about that, I kind of find it funny that based on the way this has gone, in the same way that like the brand Hoover like took over the categoric name, I'm talking to a lot of people who are not really in the field, and they're referring to them all as GPTs, which is makes me laugh. It's just very funny.
Yeah.
And as Lantor got it first, large language model. But ChatGPT, by the way, holy shit, the brand power on it being first and it just dominating on everything. Everyone thinks, oh, it's all just ChatGPT, not realizing GPT is just a method of training a model. And then from there, ChatGPT is a specific flavor of they have trained it using the GPT method.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how many models there are now.
No, they don't, because they've not visited Hugging Face.
Yeah. Like people don't realize there's ones you can entirely download on your machine that are like tiny ones, for literally called Tiny LLM, and a bunch of others, and then there's all the way up to like huge ones. So like, and even the companies themselves are at a competing stage now. So it's it's going to get to the point where it's going to be very hard to distinguish each of their, and people also don't realize that like they're not running off the same data sets. They're not actually the same thing. They're conceptually, well, except for the few cheaters who are like using others to train each other, and then you're getting into this weird, like, you know, it's hard to, it's a complicated space.
It is.
Yeah.
Kind of touching on that, there was a video recently by Fireship. Love his YouTube channel, by the way. Go.
Love the dry humor. It gets me every time.
It's got just the right amount of boomer humor for me, just the right amount of dry humor, and it keeps my Zoomer brain at it. How is it all things I love in one? But he made one recently on like it was called this new AI uncensored model, but it was called 8x7B or Mistral is what it was called. That's a really interesting model because that is small enough to be run on consumer hardware. But
isn't that the unlocked one? Is that the one that's got the guardrails taken off, or or you can get a version of it? Yeah,
you can get a version of it where it's unlocked, and it was very funny hearing him reference the bloke, who's someone I've gone to for a lot of quantized. Specifically, he trains models that are runnable on consumer hardware, so that's a very good model to use for you to then train on top of to manipulate into something far more specific, or just use out the box. I really enjoy AIs without the guardrails because that way you have to put in the guardrails for whatever purpose you have. Be warned though, you need to put in good guardrails for whatever purpose you have. If you're doing something application facing, just continue to use an already censored one, please. You don't want it going off into the crazy, unsafe directions. But I like playing with it. I like controlling that myself.
That being said, though, I'm curious your take on this because I have a spicy take a little bit, which is I assume you're also a Matt Wolf watcher if you're in the space.
Yep.
He did one a while ago where he talked about something called Mind Studio, and while the concerning AI fan like yourself is going to be like going ham with the Hugging Face API, I think the approachability of the graph-based builder that's built into Mind Studio is a really good starting point for most people. It's kind of got that sort of comfy UI-esque thing, but for text. And what's really nice about it, in my opinion, is no other system that at least I know of at the moment is very intuitive for people to build a trained data set off an existing model. Now, technically, you can do the GPT thing and do the Pro, whatever, but that's not like yours to use. Long story short, if you are somebody trying to go, I want to engage with model for my own stuff, and I want to upload my own PDFs or my own YouTube videos and do stuff with it and ask it questions, I think Mind Studio is a really good place to start. They have a free model for doing things, and it kind of lets you more intuitively load up data sets and do stuff. Not sponsored. I know nothing about the thing. I just used it a couple times and I found it very intuitive for what it's doing. I think if you're getting, if you go to Hugging Face, you'll be like, nope out of that immediately. Especially with that, like having to run your Python steps of stuff. It's like, this is like not, go to something easier. GPT, if you just want to ask questions. If you want to start building your own, I recommend Mind Studio. And then if you want to really dive in, go full Hugging Face.
I'd probably I would not immediately throw someone on Hugging Face. Absolutely, if you just want to get them started. It's there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of value. It's almost the equivalent of telling someone, hey, would you like to download the new version of your app? Go to GitHub and grab the release. But it's actually even harder to visually consume than I would say GitHub. Still great though. Still wonderful place. So
although credit, my favorite feature about Hugging Face is the fact that you can have the literally the model agnostic calls, which is so cool. Like the fact that somebody's making a agnostic kind of contract means like just the fact that I can sit there and go, I wonder what, like, of course you can do it between 4 and 3.5 turbo, whatever. Like, sure. But the fact that you can go, let's go for a completely different model and just like keep all of my code identical and the same contracts and the same models. So powerful for like app developers.
Spoiler alert, this is what my tool is as well, because I value that. But yeah, it's that generic call. And to give in-world credit as well, they do something similar where the model layer is obscured from you. They will dynamically cycle through whatever model kind of aims best, and your code endpoints are unchanged. But I'd say something for a lot of app developers is you probably don't need to, especially depending. So very big caveat, depending on what you're using your AI model in your game for. So if it's, let's just say characters, you probably don't need to do a lot of custom training there. Most of that is in your prompting, and your relevant prompting will do 90% of the heavy lifting for you for how it responds. For other uses, you do want custom training, and anything that streamlines that process is literally saving you time and money, because you can end up burning a lot more than you think trying to train something in like a server farm, come back and it's already not great. So unless you actually have those data science like principles behind you for how to aggregate data, sanitize it, and train in steps, go with like whatever streamlined solution exists by all means.
Yeah, and also on that note, for people who don't know, if you think you can just make a lot of embeddings and save them, embeddings are per the model you're using based on how it's worked. So you cannot just reuse those. So be aware of that.
I have a question for both of you.
Mhm.
What kinds of models are you seeing people actually making? Like, what are people doing all of this for? Like, what's the end result that you're seeing? And are there any that are like game dev specific? Also, Powell, is your microphone still working?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious what you think about all these things, and I haven't waiting to hear you.
I'm just listening to Jason and Corvallis talking. Yeah, I mostly agree with both what they are saying. Yeah, the hacking phase is amazing resource, but using it if you don't know what you're doing is no. You will go out of AI quicker than you went into it. Yeah, I didn't know Nine Studio. It looks cool. But I'm mostly testing more into Stable Diffusion and models that are about generating 2D and 3D graphics rather than LLMs. I had enough of language models during my studies because I was doing masters in both mathematics and in computer science on language models and training AIs. So I'm mostly working more to Stable Diffusion and looking what amazing things NVIDIA and other companies are doing with them. Yeah. Because many people are looking on DALI, Stable Diffusion, and don't know that the most of the hard work is done by NVIDIA and by their teams and their papers that you can look up and check what they are doing, because NVIDIA is years ahead of what both these companies are doing.
Yep. The actual raw research, like I think GPT as a training model existed a good 5+ years before you actually had Chat GPT.
Yeah. And to be
Also
truthful,
one
last word. If you want to go into AI and do something new, you have to read scientific papers, because they will give you so much head start. But you have to still learn the basic, and then you can go further than anyone else.
Yeah, it does feel like almost a cheat that the papers are always a couple of years ahead. And if you're lazy like me, just follow 2-minute papers and you'll get a good catch up on where things are going without having to do all of the reading yourself. The reason I recommended specifically the Mind Studio one for LLM style stuff is a space I'm seeing a lot of people do is you've got people who are like, they're not data scientists. They work in some field. So, for example, in VR, I've talked to people who are aggregating, a bunch of data about markets and how people are engaging with different platforms. Or you've got people who are doing game stuff and they want to do research papers on, they're taking notes on their stuff, but they're not like proper data set. They're not going to build their own data sets, but they want a way to like query this data. And if you're kind of naively getting started on that stuff, trying to do it through ChatGPT is a bit of a pain in the ass. You can do it, but like it's not built for you to like query your own data sets really. But this one gives you that. It's basically, I have data, I want to talk to it. Basically, how do I talk to my data? And I don't have to know a lot about creating vector embeddings and making my own database or whatever. It's a really like quick start for that. So for me, it's less about games that I recommend that one. But like, even imagine you're making your game and you just want to have a load of data, like characters and locations and, all of the different lore for your game. You can build a model that you can talk to. Now, personally, I put all that in Obsidian, and I have an Obsidian plugin which vectorizes my Obsidian Vault, and I talk to that. But if you want, like, again, not the 10x complicated version, that other one is what I'd recommend that for.
So I have a question. I know a programmer or data scientist who basically does all of his app creation with ChatGPT, and he thinks that the future of programming is just prompt programmers, and that people won't be writing code in the near future. Do you guys think that is true, or?
I wouldn't say so, because we've had this come up, and there have been a couple moments where people have had an honest conversation about assessing where it is and where you're going to end up going. The same way that like no code apps exist, when no code apps were like introduced to frameworks, there were certain forms of like very specific, I believe it was some PHP and like JavaScript like industries that were very heavily impacted. You weren't finding those very specific forms of jobs, but it didn't decrease computer science like engineering demand. It increased because as no-code apps existed, different no-code app companies wanted different engineers to help build your better no-code pipeline. And even once you've built your initial mock-up with no-code, if you want to go any further than that, you still need an engineer. Not just an engineer to build it, now someone who can also read the output of that app and modify it accordingly. So prompting might become a like kind of quick basis where a lot of different framework tools, like JavaScript frameworks, have been trying to work in their own tooling using like little AI assistants to help quickly build mockups and others. But this will play nicely with developers, where you'll want someone to initially prompt it. But the same reason why Stable Diffusion doesn't replace your need for a concept artist, the prompt engineer will not replace your need for a software engineer. You still need that direction, a coherent idea of how you're building your tools and software together to ensure you actually have a good product and not just a very mediocre, barely functional.
In fact, this already happened. People don't realize it. I can easily demonstrate this to you, and you'd all be like, aha, yes. This happened in web development because there's Squarespace, there's Wix, there's all of these tools, and that's what we're talking about. There's going to be an entire new category of web developers and web developers, and a lot of people will be fine just having I need a dashboard website or a blog. In other words, I need an app which is basically a glorified remake of a calculator, or I need an app which just eats a single API and spits some data on screen. Sure, you can hire a prompt engineer for that, but if you're a real company, you're going to use a real developer. Just at this stage, you know, it's going to be the same as anything else. It's the classic thing of like, if I'm hiring a web developer and their website is built on Wix, I'm not going to hire them because they're, you know. And in the same way that when we get to that point, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to have a lot of developers who are like really quick making stuff, cool, but you're going to need to know that. And also, without getting into a whole big technical thing on this, we're returning back to the days of being of looking at performance again. So now that like machines have gotten really powerful, sure, but we're hitting that point, which is sort of the Jonathan Blow inflection point, where everything's like really slow, like orders of magnitude, 100, whatever. And he's been complaining about this for a very long time, and we're getting to the point now that like we're going to have to catch up on the performance side for the actual hardware. So my point with this is the likes of prompt engineering will write you code that'll work on your machine, but they won't write you code that understands the processor you're on for the platform you're on, that does SIMD instructions to create, you know, multiply faster by orders of magnitude calculations for stuff. And as we get more and more graphics and more stuff that's important, you're going to want something that can keep up. And so, yeah, you're going to end up with the Wix websites and you're going to end up with the real stuff. And so I don't see it even being remotely a threat. It'll just mean there'll be an entire new category of lower skill entry level quote unquote developers who are just the same as like people who like I knew people 7 years ago who were full-time job building WordPress websites for people. Like literally they're being paid thousands, but their job is I download a WordPress template and I customize it. Now that's not no skill, to be brutally honest. It does actually, you have to understand JavaScript enough to customize it. You have to understand whatever, but it is vastly simpler than learning how to write your own React web page or whatever, you know? And so that's what we're getting to.
So, I mean, there's always going to be need for creative problem solving, creative implementation of something, and just writing the proper prompt isn't going to do that for you. I mean, unless you're skilled enough where you can write a prompt just to get going, and then you can take what's there and then be creative with it. But in the end, you might as well just start on your own. If you're
now, I'll say what I use it for. I think like the ultimate use case for ChatGPT and those things going forward is what Paul said earlier about papers. Papers are bloody confusing. and they're written for people in the same field. All technical papers are written technically.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of it could be described a lot simpler if they were actually trying to explain it, but that's not the point. They're trying to get across to colleagues. And so, like in my case, I'll be like, I want to do binary space partitioning. I know what the word means. I've read a couple of bits about it. What is this? What does it really mean? How do I engage with this problem? And so you ask ChatGPT and it'll explain it to you and it'll reference things. And yes, it'll currently hallucinate some papers and things, but some of them are real. And as long as you follow the links and go read the things, you can see the sources. But what it will do is it'll explain the concepts. And so I think that going forward, it's going to get better at that. And I think we're going to have a tighter kind of connection between the data sets. And so you're going to be able to use it to go, I don't know what sign distance fields actually are. What is it? How do I actually use it? Because people are using it now for cool stuff more than just text. They're using it for like models and efficient. Like, so how do I use this? What is a sign distance field? How does it apply to my work? And then you'll kind of like learn these things. So I think that's where it's going to really take off. Not for the people cutting corners, but for the people who are like, this is an intractably complicated field. How do I even like begin learning these complicated concepts?
Trying to gain knowledge to apply it. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, and it's super cool for that. Like, not to even underestimate it. It's really, really cool for that. A small microcosm as a downside from that is like Stack Exchange had to ban any AI generated answers. A, because people didn't know what they were posting, but also B, it dramatically has dropped the utilization of Stack Exchange. Because if you have a very specific,
get rid of Stack.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing for everyone, just for Stack Exchange. But yes, there are so many times where I just wanted to Google a very simple syntax problem, and I got something way more protracted and way more unrelated than my problem. ChatGPT will hone in on it. I can ask follow-up questions. The detailing is amazing. It's a great force multiplier for people who already like know what they're doing somewhat, and for you to very quickly iterate and learn.
Yeah, personally, I feel like it's gonna destroy the education side of stuff for me. Like, it's making it really easy. Eventually, very soon, there will be bots that can teach as well or better than I can. Speaking of, reminds me, I put all my stuff on sale half off for New Year's. There's code NY. It just gives you 50% off. You can check that out. But I've been trying not to interrupt. I'm curious on Salim's question about it kind of replacing software engineers or developers. I mean, I don't think that prompt engineering will as a whole. I think that's kind of like an interim thing that will come. It'll be big for a little while, and then eventually it'll become simplified, and it won't be a position that we need. It'll be one of those things that everybody knows how to do. But I think that eventually, like, if we give it enough time, eventually there's no need for programmers, right? Maybe you're 1,000 years out, there's no need for programmers because you talk to the computer, it does stuff. Maybe there are some people that low level kind of understand how the stuff goes, but as a whole, like for general getting stuff done, application type things, there's no need for it. Where do you guys think that is down the line? I mean, obviously we don't think that's 2, 5, 10 years away, but where do you feel like that might hit where the average anything that you need up to like the giant world, maybe like the world scale things, it's AI and humans collaborating together to come up with the thing. But
I don't think it's going to manifest the way you think it does. I think the rhetoric around this is the idea that coding will get easier. It'll start writing code for you. It'll start automating and it'll keep going that cycle to the point where
that's been the cycle we've been on, right? For like ever.
Sure.
Things have gotten easier and more people can do stuff. And what used to be a difficult application is now like something that any 12-year-old can slap together in 2 minutes.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't disagree that that'll happen, but I think what people are missing is in a world where you have AI you can talk to, why do you need to hire people to make bespoke applications at all? Right? I think that's the difference. The difference isn't that it's going to quote unquote replace developers. I think we're going to get to the point that fundamentally you used to go and read an encyclopedia to learn things. Then you switch from encyclopedias to I go to Google it. And now I think we're going to go I AI it. And I think it'll surpass the GPT principle. It'll be sort of this conglomerate hive mind concept of there's a bunch of different services that we interact with. And I think my point is, I don't think it'll replace programmers because I don't think programmers will exist in the same concept. I think people won't be making apps. You won't be hiring it that way. What will happen is programmers will still exist inside of companies supporting the engineering and technical tools that result in people like asking for apps to be made for them. 3D printers, for example. It's basically, it'll be a 3D printed concept of like the engineers of 3D printers aren't going away, but people don't have to hire someone to whittle them something anymore. They can have a printer do it for them. And I think that's the difference. It's not that they're not going to hire an AI over a person. They just simply won't even consider that as a question. They will be, I need a thing that does this thing on this data set and gives me this searchable interface. It'll be like press button, there you go. But again, I don't perceive that as replacing programmers. I perceive that as like the way we engage with data is fundamentally changing.
That makes
the role
more
becomes
data than apps.
Wouldn't the role just evolve basically? I mean, it's going to turn into something, and it's going to be part and parcel with AI's growth. But in the end, I think part of the argument is also that you're assuming that creativity or anything like that, as it relates to code, will no longer need to exist, which I don't think that's true, right? You need.
No, I don't mean it from a creativity side. What I mean is like the problem domain will change. For example, like you could say that the car has, for the most part, replaced horseshoe manufacturers, right? You could argue that, but it's not like it killed an industry. It made multiple different industries that transcend that concept, and skills have to change and whatever.
Yeah.
And so,
but it did kill the other industries. I mean, it does kill them, and just new ones appear. And you're thinking that programming, I don't disagree. I think it'll happen eventually like that. I just wonder, like, well, I don't think that it's a near-term threat that people need to worry about too much. But I do think that like our grandkids should be concerned about that.
Over time, I wouldn't even see the word concern. Right?
What I'm saying is, if you want to be if you care about programming, you think it's a cool career, you will still be able to get a job as a programmer for the next 2,000 years. But the thing is, you'll be doing it, and what you'll be tasked with will change. It'll no longer be, you'll no longer get away with being a JavaScript developer. You will have to start knowing quantum computing because the expectations for that career will specialize, is kind of what I mean.
Yeah, that's why I'd say the role would evolve where the previous industry is dead. Because certain industries do come and die as different tech replaces it. It's just for now, the trend has been new secondary industries evolve around that innovation where now like a horseshoe manufacturer doesn't make horseshoes, but they're still a metallurgist. You convert into some other form of like specific metallurgy form. So coders in the far future will probably become more integrated AI maintainers, and you still need someone to create the concept basis, to feed it data, to fine tune it, and to still create, because you'll still want to have that variety of services. What does this AI do? This one does UI frameworks, but better. What does this AI do? This one does your backend servicing, but better. So you still have these engineers solving these problems, but their domain space is now in the form of me making a tool that solves this problem highly efficiently.
Also, plus here's a completely wacky theory I have, which I can't substantiate, but I have a feeling it'll happen. Is there back engineers? Okay, let's take actually a different career altogether. Video editors. Video editor used to mean somebody who literally spun a wheel, took tape, cut the tape, lined up the video and the audio, and had to build together the actual pieces, run it through a machine, and it was
That's
actually.
how I still do it.
It's infinitely more technical. But the job, again, the job has changed, but the name of the job is the same, but like fundamentally the skills are vastly different. And what I think is interesting is the advent of CDs. You can argue again from the whole different jobs thing, but what's more interesting to me is the fact that multiple new industries grow up from that because the actual technologies have changed. So again, what I'm getting at here, my theory is AI is letting us solve problems we could never solve before, like literally solving equations that people haven't been able to solve. And so it is very likely we're going to hit a break. Like we've hit that sort of the Moore's law like issues where like you can only make things as small as you can on a circuit board as is, but that's because we're still thinking in circuit boards. And in some stage in the future, some AI evolution is going to come up with something. I don't know whether it's going to be the futuristic crystals concept or it's going to be some other newfangled thing that we don't know about, some organic circuit board system that's going to be something.
Spaghetti based.
Biocomputers, literally based on spaghetti.
Yeah, and the point is there'll be something new, and that new thing will be that suddenly we've got like we have to rethink how we build computers.
Yeah, and you'll need engineers that know how to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And so exactly, so like those people, you still need people going to college then are going to be like, okay, your first year course is going to be what's a qubit, right? Like it's still thing, but like the course structures will vastly change because by the end of it you'll have to learn how to like graft whatever onto this particular new technology cycle. So I think it's kind of fallacious to look at our current string of technology and say, oh, that'll go away. It's like, well, yeah, that always happens. But what's more interesting is what AI is doing to every other industry. And it's like, it'll change how battery technology works, which means there'll be new batteries, which means there'll be new engineers required to understand how batteries work to make better batteries. And every other industry is going to like expand, and it'll be a very different space.
Yeah. The new paradigms and how you would think and operate in those new paradigms. It's really hard to predict a paradigm shift because it requires you have discovered something so novel, it fundamentally reshapes or alters all like operating assumptions and procedures.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think it will. I think
it'll
be something.
What you do is different. Yeah,
I don't know what it's going to be, but I truly believe we'll have a paradigm shifting change in the next 10 years. And I don't think AI is the paradigm shifting change. I think it's the catalyst for something. And some other field will be like, oh, there's a new, like, we've figured out how to interact with the fourth dimension. So something will happen and it'll completely change the way we engage.
Tachyons, guys. We caught one. We proved them.
We figured out how to make pop-up markets in video games fun. And everyone wants that.
Let's not go
guys, we can live in the metaverse now, all right? We fixed it.
A pop-up market video game designer. That's what the game design field will change into.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not.
Ooh, one more sprinkle on our existential talk is another signal of like a big paradigm shift we moved into with the advent of the internet is just information distribution. There's a concept of like the singularity where people who can be knowledge holders and knowledge gatherers become infinitely more condensed as they can condense way more information way more efficiently, and those who can't, meaning if you are not immediately technologically literate or you do not engage with these, that gap gets way wider. This is why, like, even as part of my internship, it was a group called like the Workforce Integration Network. It was about providing baseline technical literacy to people who weren't already technically literate, because the gap continues to get more and more severe between someone who barely knows how to use a computer, which is a lot more people than we even give credit for, to someone who knows how to use a computer, can like internet and Google, but like mostly exists in the consumer social media space, to someone who's actively looking up new AI research, finding new LLMs, and like having their multi-machine integrations. The sheer disparitions of knowledge are becoming way harsher than they ever have been. And that's already an indication of how do you rectify that societal shift with all the knock-on effects that happen. And just the concept of what is true amongst a media or entertainment sphere has been a big shift in this information consolidation. You can learn something entirely valid, meaning entirely consistent, but it doesn't map onto the same reality as someone else because you two have fundamentally different information streams and ways of proving that and backing that up.
That's why the internet became part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like God knows how many years ago, because people were like, we're at the point now where it's not just a fun, nice to have. You are fundamentally missing like engagement with a lot of the world and how information works if you don't have access to the internet. So it's moved from like, again, it's moved from luxury into like that's how the world is now. And so yeah, 100% agree. Like there's always the whole like disenfranchised access to resources and stuff, but we're at the point now where like the great equalizers are these things, are the internet and AI stuff. And yeah, if you don't have basic literacy in that stuff, you're going to be out of luck for like, because this happened with secretary work. Right? It used to be you just had to be able to type, and it moved on to word processing, and people were being pushed out of their jobs because they were amazing typists, but they weren't keeping up with the modern trend of actually people expect you to make PowerPoint presentations and things because that's now embedded in your job title that you didn't realize was happening. And so that'll happen as people don't realize the actual job description is changing.
It always changes when you're doing software stuff. This is PAL synthesis, right? This is what, by country?
It's from mostly OECD countries, the level of knowledge about using a computer. Yeah.
Holy crap, that's terrifying that it's below 75% at poor even.
Yeah.
And then like terrible, can't use at all, 25%.
Yeah, mostly in OECD, 26% of adults don't know how to use computer.
That is insane.
Well,
I mean, I know people like that though. I've got friends who still struggle. They'll like call me up like, hey, my computer popped a thing up, so I unplugged it and threw it in the trash. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, and mostly we are talking about It's about of jobs of people that are in level 2, but mostly in level 3 of this graph. Yeah, this is the people we are talking about that will lose their jobs.
The level 3s.
Yeah, because mostly programmers are level higher level 2, level 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are talking that mostly it will change. It didn't change through how many years do we have computers right now that are public that most people use what we are talking about, and it's still this level of quality in the OECD countries. Yeah.
Yeah, and like another thing too, people do not understand unless you've done it. You have no idea how far behind technologically large corporations are, and for good reason.
God.
Because if you have a banking institution that is like literally in charge of, I worked for a bank that was like not a bank that you go to, a bank that companies go to. it's like they're
Enterprise bank, yeah.
Yeah, and they are working off of old versions of Java and Haskell is how their technology stack works, and it has to, because it's like it's silly example, but they wanted to change the in-house because they were still using Office 95 or 90, whatever 98 I think was, whatever the Office like old standard was, and they made it a company-wide thing. We're going to upgrade to the new version, but to do that on a company that's got distributed across multiple different places with virtualized images for the machines, with a whole bunch of people from training from their they've been using the software their whole life. They had to hire people to fly from building, go to each of these different places, hold training seminars to teach people to migrate, because Microsoft had switched from the file menu bar to the ribbon bar, which wasn't like a huge and this is old now. This is years old, but they're not going to move too far because a company's not going to internally change everything and break all of their software. They're only going to move, and the only reason they had to move is because exploits were found in the old version that forced them to move. Otherwise, they can't. So my point with this is to say large companies are running off dated software, often with stacks of 20 to 40 years out from what we're doing. And they're only going to change once the exploits get bad enough they have to. And when they do, they'll only change to the minimum version required to retain consistent work on their business. And that's going to have extreme cost because everyone internally had no reason to learn the new ones. They're not techies. They're not going to keep up on the new things. And so they have to be retrained in doing it. So the average tech job, not the average person, the average tech job is somebody who's familiar with using the default software that comes internally with a company that's probably years out from what we're doing. So a lot of people still use old Word. That's their day job. Just keep that in mind.
Not only that.
The leading edge of technology are all the ransomware people. To Dustin's point, like those, they're so sophisticated, it's crazy, and like they laugh at like exploiting all these enterprise level places that just can't or won't update their software.
Yeah, but the same is for governments. Yeah, my wife is programmed in one of the government agencies in Poland. I can't tell which because we will be talking more now. They are still using database file, DBFs. This is, I think, 40 years old format of files that mostly isn't used anywhere else than there. Yeah, from what all companies know, and they still have to use it. Yeah, so big companies or government agencies don't change that quickly, especially their software right now is valued about, I think it's $500 million, the software that they are using. So rewriting something like that is such a big amount of money and time, and it's mostly very specific country needs that they have to change. So even small change of the data analysis that they are doing can change difference of Poland's budget in millions or in billions if they change the format of the file that they are using. So it's big change that you have to do, but because the amount of data they are storing is crazy.
Yeah, so think what that means then, right? That means the user-facing front ends, all the gimmicky toys, are going to be built by Tiger teams that we'll get to play with AI for our banking when we go next to the talking AI thing. But the machine behind that will have a slimline front end of modern React web stuff or whatever, and then behind that will be 50 years of Haskell and Java and whatever. And so the idea that programmer jobs are going to disappear is laughable when the entire world runs on 30 to 50-year-old tech that still needs to be maintained. And like, it's not even remotely on the table.
Because it's
Yeah,
even
AI just fix all that? Can't you just press the AI button and give it the right prompt to fix my stuff?
I gave ChatGPT my country's bank codes, and guess what happened next?
Speaking of giving ChatGPT stuff, Corvallis, somebody said something things would be different this generation. So now that you're the only young one on, I got to give you shit. I was watching this video yesterday. I think it was Jubilee, and they were talking about. I think it was like about communism and capitalism. It wasn't the interesting part. It was the part that was interesting was when they started talking about AI. And they got excited about the idea of having an AI that just told everybody what to do and ran the world so that we all knew what job to do and what we should be doing with our lives and how everything would be optimized, because then it would know everything. And it terrified the crap out of me. I was like, shit. Like, not only is it coming, it's coming, and people are excited about it. So
have you seen the two companies that have a AI as CEO?
No,
Like
but I've been watching way too many sci-fi shows.
I think
I know.
Let's just say
last one.
Another hot take, and like you can take this to the bank. Some Isaac Asimov movies are going to be remade in the next few years again because people need to learn some life lessons, and they're going to go back to that well.
I want good ones too, because all too often people who make the AI scare movies also don't understand AI. So you're not even warning them about the correct things to be scared about.
Did you see the one Transcendence with Johnny Depp? It's one of the worst AI movies I've seen in my entire life. It's so bad.
It has Johnny Depp though.
True. And you know what? That's why it still sells.
I think that Miss Davis one is more realistic. I think that a Chick-fil-A open source AI ruling the world is probably the most likely thing to happen.
It's a spoiler. Don't tell people that. That's a story beat.
But they actually interviewed one of these CEOs, and the CEO, they're like asked what he does on the weekend, and it's like, I don't do anything on the weekend, so I can be available to customers all the time. I'm like, man, oh god. And they just like announced the first humanoid robot building factory. Like, man, this stuff is real. We need to like watch Terminator again, please. Like, just absorb all of it. Skynet.
To be honest, too. Well, now I'm of two different minds, because also for reference, I watched a fun AI movie last night with the family. It was funny, but it was also so dumb.
What's it called?
Which one?
It's called it was called Control. It's available on Hulu for free if you want to watch it. It has like a picture of like a small AI
Control.
child.
The game is good, but yeah.
Yeah. The whole premise was, we created AIs. We made them really, really human-like. They started fighting for civil rights. Los Angeles gets nuked, and now all AIs are murdered in all of the United States. It gets so weird on so many levels, but it's actually so entertaining to watch, because the more you just let it roll, it's just fun to watch. It's not smart, but it's fun to watch. But crux of that movie was basically they used neural mappings to make their AIs. They're literally based off the human brain. And you want to deny them like sentient, right? You built this problem for yourself. As long as you don't literally encode in suffering, human emotion, you're trying to make them as human-like as possible. You don't have all the wacky ethical issues of them becoming sentient and going.
You
use the human brain as a basis. But no, I am of the opinion of like, oh no, people are actually dumb enough where they would do that. It seems like
I'll do it for $5 on Fiverr. Right.
It's gonna happen for sure.
Give you the saddest AI you want, only $5.
Someone took a neural network and thought, let me make it a human brain. Let's make it suffer. Nothing bad will happen from this, surely. So
if you want a good AI movie, watch Animatrix. That one is absolutely fantastic.
Animatrix is really good.
Yeah.
All right, let's give away that asset real quick. Let's go up here. We got that environment pack from Nature Manufacturer. Anybody who's been hanging around and listening to the end of the world that's coming soon. If you want to win this, you have to answer something that is difficult. So this is going to be a Powell question that is going to be confusing and very, very hard. So get ready. We're going to pop it up. I'll make it on screen. You can read it, and then you have to give the the answer. How should we phrase this?
What this formula is for?
Oh no, I saw
Yeah,
this
You
picture.
have to tell us what the formula is for, and I'm gonna flip it up on screen in. I'll wait 10 seconds. Everybody can get their chat window ready. This is for that big Nature Manufacturer art pack. I have no idea what the answer is, by the way. So
Vaguely vector 3D space. Best hint I can
get
toss
your
out.
AI image recognition ready. Your AI formula recognition ready. Here it comes. All right, let's go. And here it comes. Now, I have no idea. What is this formula for? It's probably something video game related, is my guess.
I'm looking
for
at
video
sixes,
games?
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, this
For
is one of the
creating
things.
emotions in AI.
It's one of the things that I have to teach my 3D artists because they used it. And silence.
There's some answers in here, but I don't know.
One of the funniest things that scares people when in math, because it scares me too, is when you see a symbol that you have no idea what that represents. Is it a variable? Is it Greek? Is it a constant? I don't know. And I don't know
triangle.
Which also sucks because in a lot of equations, it's
oh,
just like,
Joseph, that was quick. Joseph has it correctly. This is formula for the gradient of function. Mostly it's used for calculating the vector fields of 2, 3, or many-dimensional functions. Something, I gave you the link. Yeah.
Can you explain how you would use it?
I just gave you the link. If you can pop it out, it will be the easiest one to say.
There it is.
So, yeah. So mostly it shows you if you have a function, 2D function of some kind of 3D model or something that you're generating, you can calculate what's the fastest way from this point going up the value. So if you have high map that you calculated from some kind of functions like waves, you can know where are the waves the easiest way to go up. So you got vector fields, and with vector fields you can then calculate other stuff. Yeah.
So you'd use like flow fields then for like wind or for other things you'd want to do on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly the easiest way, for example, if you have terrain, you have erosion that you want to go around the terrain, you can calculate erosion based on the gradient of this element. Yeah.
I have a question. Do they actually teach video game math as a course anywhere? Like what? Like how broad a subject is the concept of video game math?
There are some books. There are some universities that have both games and math, and they are then teaching both of them. Yeah, I went to a university that moved from just making computer science, just making math, to making them both. Yeah, so you could go to both classes and learn where you can use it. Yeah. For example, if you want to learn more about this kind of star gradients, I gave a link to Jason. As soon as he comes back, he will showcase it and send it. For example, Khan Academy teaches, has very good curriculum for learning math by yourselves. Yeah, if you want to learn stuff like that. As for books, I would have to get back to books I have.
You're looking at that. I will say, as someone who is really bad at math, I'm like legitimately, I'm very, very, very bad. And the only maths I know are things that I've learned a lot, wrote extensive notes for myself, and I have to reuse the notes whenever I use the stuff again. But I will say, one thing that's really cool about this field and kind of learning this stuff is a lot of it is small equations that stack into more complicated things. A good example of this is the same quote unquote technology that like interpolates a movement from an A position to a B position and just slides is the same thing that makes curves. You just stack curves to make different scales of the big. You take the middle point. It's like, without going into loads of detail, it's fascinating how a lot of this stuff, like even these the vector fields here, they're used for so many things that it's very hard to say what are they for. A good example of this is you can use them for AI pathfinding. It's not intuitive that way, but what you can do is if you're using a star path map, for example, it's expensive to calculate where one thing goes from A to B and whatever. But what you can do is you can have one thing move along a space, generate a flow field of the various places around it, and everything else can follow the path of the flow field, which is a much cheaper calculation than having to like actually calculate its own pathing. So the point is, like, I'm really bad at this stuff, but the few things I have learned have scaled exponentially that you can kind of learn, like, you know, quadratic equations from the other stuff into like more complicated things. And there's some really powerful stuff there.
Yeah, so Jason just showcased the site I was talking about. Khan Academy is one of the better sites to learn math by yourself if you want to learn.
And it's interactive too, which is so cool. Like,
but remember one thing. This is mostly, if I remember correctly, and I checked, this is US math. Remember that most of the world, many areas of the world have different kind of math types, writing, and letters that you use for different things. For example, math in Poland, Russia, and East Europe has totally different possibilities of writing math than US. That's if you're
little I know about math.
If you're on a university in Western Poland, I know India has its also own system. You will see similarities, but it can be different. For me, if you want to learn math by yourself and you know English, use US books because they are the easiest ones to understand, and they go through quite interesting curriculum. The East European math is the hardest. Most of the best mathematicians came from this area, but it's longest curve to learn math by yourself. Yeah. So mostly, if I didn't understand anything from the books of my professors, I went and searched the same book from United States, learned it from them, and then tried to understand the ones from Poland.
Yeah, that's the best way. That compound learning is great, especially if you're in a course that teaches just at least a portion of what you need, and you know you want to go even beyond that course. Having some supplemental learning, combining that with your professor, and your professor will like you more because you're going to ask them actually interesting questions that you have a fun back and forth with them on.
Yeah, that sentence question, I kind of had the same thing. Is the notation different? It sounds like you're saying it is.
Yeah, there are very things that are similar, but there are very things that are different. Even you have, for example, for calculators, you have Polish notation that is quite a little different than notation that you use in different countries. That's why if you have a calculator that uses brackets and calculates something in brackets, you can have two calculators that give you different thing that you will be calculating, you will have different results from two calculators. Because
really?
how because brackets depends on if you're calculating something, you can go left to right. You can go first brackets, then multiplications, and so on. Yeah, and the difference
have you
is
heard of bombast? That was the one back in the day we were learning.
And there's the different. Yeah, and that's the difference how you understand brackets when you're calculating the calculators. So you can have two calculators that will calculate you something that has brackets in different way.
But still, if they're written correctly, the calculation will be the same. The math is still the same. It's just understanding the way.
The math is not always the same. That's the problem. Ooh. If you're calculating basic math with brackets, it can be a little different. These differences mostly won't change if you're using only your version. But if you understand it differently, then it can be. It got standardized, but you still, that is going standardization in it, But if you look at the books that are a few years old, it can be different. So you have to watch for it. Yeah, that's why you have sometimes on the internet some questions about some calculations in brackets, and you have different answers that can be correct.
That's kooky.
Which also doesn't get to the part that kills me is the intersection of, great, now you're a master at maths. Now you have to understand physics, and that's a whole it does have a lot of the same principle stuff, but learning the different, like the constants and going down the rabbit hole of like
Yep.
Yeah.
starts yet.
And the same
And
thing-
I
same thing
can
applies
tell
to
you
things like
one
music and
thing.
stuff like that.
Yeah. For example, on my master's degree, on 58th of master, so the last year, we had one semester of physics. From 100 people that took that course, mathematics teachers who knew very hard mathematics. Mostly they had problems with physics. Why? Because the notation was different. The biggest problem in the class was, physics wrote some equation, and in the class, I think 2 people knew what to do with it. We had to, because I love also physics, so I was able to understand it. So I had to tell people, you see, if you take this notation and you write it this way, you can now, when our lecturer understood that we don't know, that most of the class don't know notation, he changed notation to mathematics. It took 5 seconds for everyone to calculate it. Yeah. So the biggest problem for mathematicians to go to physics is that the notation is totally different.
Mhm.
Interesting. You have to have that lexicon and understand the differences. Yeah.
Well, the good news for me is I'll never get far enough in to have that problem because it's too far for me.
I don't believe you.
No.
I think you're good, Matt. I think you're lying.
No, to be true, I can give you one thing from Poland. For example, because I wanted always to be a teacher. I left it when I went to GameDev. Yeah, there was some scientific analysis of children in Poland that are learning math. In classes 1 to 3, how do you think? How many children in classes, mostly in Europe, it's the same. From class 1 to 3, have high knowledge about mathematics and can be good mathematicians?
I would
How
expect
many?
most of them, like 80%.
Mostly
80
80 to 90% of children have high mathematics skills. In classes 7 to 8 in Poland, mostly 20%. Why? Because mathematics is mostly taught around to children. We are still using Prussian methods, because in Europe we are using mostly Prussian methods, but to be truthful, most of the world uses them to teach math. In Europe, I think there are 3 countries in entire Europe that teaches math good. Most of but because if you're taught wrong, you're getting wrong thoughts, you don't want to learn it, and the math's starting to get very, very hard.
I think it's also like math. If you can't apply it, like more abstract concepts.
Exactly.
If you can't apply it, it's hard to like.
Actually, 100%, right? So when I was in school, I switched schools when I was younger, like 4 different times because family moved or whatever, and that means that, as you know, if you're taking a curriculum and you're switching, you're missing so many things, and math is very compounding. And so in my case, I missed a huge chunk of coordinate geometry. And if you're trying to learn anything and you miss chunks of coordinate geometry and you miss some basic algebra, everything downstream is going to absolutely ruin you. And so I had a lot of struggling with that stuff. And so when I got into games, I was like, I don't know how to do slope of a line. I can see the equation, like these really basic things of like how you do stuff. And then I even went to college and they did math in college, and I was like, I still not really getting it. But the part that clicked for me was once you started applying it to game dev scenarios. So there were things like we had one really good teacher who was kind of talking about it as like, okay, say you're making World of Warcraft and you want a character to stab someone in the back. How do you rotate your character to face the other character? And it's like, okay, let's treat it like a problem. You draw the line out front, you draw the line to the target, you get the distance, you rotate. It's like, oh, suddenly there's a framing device that makes sense for that kind of information. So yeah, 100%. That was like, I don't think I'll ever be particularly great because I've had such a wacky early start with how math worked for me. But yeah, legitimately, the only things I have managed to grasp have come from a foundational understanding. Same with like the physics. I learned physics by starting with what is a vector, what is Euler integration, write your own acceleration, write your own steering behaviors, turn the steering behaviors into particle systems, turn the particle systems into, and then you kind of scale it up. And that's the only way I could even get my head around like 10% of this stuff.
Big agree, because for math, a lot of my challenges in math were, it's a practical example. Problem solving is a skill by itself that needs to be practiced. How to break down the problem, the practical utilization of it. And I'm very big on that feedback. That's the whole reason I even enjoyed programming. When I was a kid, I had like a science kit, tried it out, experiment didn't work. I don't care, I'm bored now. Versus coding, ooh, it gave me an error. Let's investigate that error. Oh, let me follow it down that rabbit hole. And through that, it ended up teaching me mathematics and physics concepts that I would lose later down the line. So I got to figure out what velocity and acceleration was, because I had to calculate that formula in Unity. And I'm like, what is this equation actually doing? But because I knew syntax, I could break it down. So I would see it later. It was fun. Or like translation across geometry. I was translating in Unity before I actually translated in mathematics. So it caused a very fun interplay. And yeah, having that direct example and use cases dramatically improves learning outcomes and dramatically increases confidence, because you don't want to see something and not know what you're doing. I took AP Calculus in senior year, worst test of my life. I didn't know what half of it was.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about learning math, especially in primary school, is that you're teaching them calculus, not mathematics. Yeah, because calculus of math is, let's say this is mathematics. Calculus is mostly this, and it shouldn't. Mostly it can be taught. What you have calculators, you have Excel, you can use them to calculate. Yeah, mostly you should teach people how to solve problems. Mathematical problems, because that's
we used to be given matrices, and literally our task was multiply these matrices together. It's like, cool. Why? What is this doing for me? I'm literally
don't worry, you're never doing this again, by the way.
And what's the funny thing, Jason? I just wanted to say an anecdote about it. There was classes. I have to remember which year it was. It was 19th century. Yeah, 19th century. A kid in school was learning mathematics. He found new method to calculate matrices, and he will get, as always, the very bad score, because he was using method that nobody ever knew that method. That person was Carl Friedrich Gauss, and he invented that day Gauss elimination, which is one of the best methods to calculate and multiply, adding, and solving equations in matrices. Yeah, so yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, most classes don't teach what's the most important thing about mathematics. Mathematics is solving problems and making something easier to calculate rather than doing everything else. Yeah. So
why are we showing 2 + 2 is equal to 5?
Yeah, because when you're teaching this, when you're looking at 2 + 2 in primary school, if you write 5, you mostly teacher will tell you it's wrong. If you show something like that in higher mathematics, the lecturer should ask you, what is plus? And it can be true or cannot be true. It depends. Yeah, because like now you're looking at it as a child that thinks that 2 is additive of 2 and 2, yeah? Additive of A and B. But if you define plus as additive of A plus B plus 1, so additive of 2 numbers plus and 1, then it will be correct. So in higher mathematics, symbols can change. The very small things can change and make difference. Yeah. Yeah. So Jack just wrote 1 + 1 = 10. Yeah. And it's correct if you know what in what type of system he is using. Yeah.
Yeah. Which base encoding you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, the encryptions mostly use additive. That's how it's called. You have 2 + 2, but you round it down to not being higher than 3. Yeah. So it's this kind of mathematics that we are mostly using. I think it's in computer in C# it's percent. Yeah. They're doing 2 + 2% 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops,
yeah.
Wrong button.
So, yeah.
Drop myself to the ground.
You okay there, Jason?
Yeah, I just pulled I meant to pull the recline one on the left, and I accidentally pulled the drop myself to the ground one on the right.
And another
One
like
second.
fun addition to all of that too is not only do you have to deal with the math side of it, you've also to deal with the encoding from a computer perspective. So if you haven't heard of the concept of big endian versus little endian, you're getting into there's a whole other area where you
Yeah.
could have the exact same stuff that causes bigger headaches because numbers aren't encoded the same way. So this gets craziness.
Remind me of my first iPhone apps, all that networking, having to do this custom. Terrible flashbacks. They love your Christmas gift of brain hurting math.
Don't worry, the pain made your brain think stronger.
What is funny, this is, I would say, first year of mathematics on the studies that I entered. So this is something, many of these things I learned in high school rather than my studies.
Yeah, eventually this will be like a first, second year of elementary school.
To be mostly, you won't see any numbers on the higher years of college. Yeah. Because you're just doing equations and thinking about equations.
Yeah.
Fantastic comment.
Yeah, I know how to draw at least from mathematical equations. Yeah, those are easier.
No drawing; it's all math.
You don't choose the formulas,
Everyone's
okay?
seen that the shader one, right? The shader code, which literally draws the girl in the snow. That whole thing. It's just
Yeah,
craziness. Absolutely.
yeah, that's
I think it's crazy.
that's mostly the fun thing. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
I think-
future.
You're
yeah.
telling me that I can't.
This is what I was
use
searching
this
for.
at all?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me?
What are we
I
telling?
can't chat GPT this at all. You're telling me I have to.
I just gave Jason the showcase about two calculators giving the different answer. I think that's the most common one.
Pop that up.
Yeah. So yeah, here you have the example about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling GPT is not going to know how to answer either of these. Just a sneaky suspicion. Funny complete side tangent. LLMs, very bad at math. Do not ask the language model to do math. It cannot do very basic math.
Isn't that what the secret one that they fired Altman was able to do?
Oh,
That's what they
AGI.
say.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what they said,
Yeah.
because it was able to figure out math and then become a god and rule everybody. So they're like,
They fired him, brought him immediately back over. You mean?
they fired him, and then it said, no, you have to bring him back, and then they brought him back. But I assume that's what happened.
It renegotiated his contract for him and gave him a raise.
Yeah, I think it probably just threatened all the board members. It's my guess.
Started posting addresses.
Yeah.
You ever been doxxed by your own AI? It's not a fun feeling.
Oh, somebody
Yeah.
the winner of RAM already had it, so we need to pick a new winner, I guess. So anybody, you got another question for RAM? We can try giving it away again. River Auto Material, any RAM related question? Anything maybe math related around generating rivers, or maybe not so hard math related, so somebody who could never solve this problem can win it? Salim, you got a good river question?
I don't have river questions. No.
You have an EverQuest river question?
No.
Oh, what the hell?
No. God.
I've got a really dumb question.
All right.
In before Powell drops up the Colet's conjectures, it's like a problem for everyone to try to solve.
What gets wetter as it dries?
Oh, all right. Let's see the answer for RAM 2019. What gets wetter as it dries?
Baby's first riddle. That was my first riddle.
Oh,
VCA guess. Nope.
We have a
Oh,
winner.
Mike got it. Mike Page got it. It is a towel.
Tally.
oh, that's a good one. All right, congratulations, Mike. Send me an email and I will send it. It's just jason@game.courses. I'll send you the code. And thanks for letting us know that
Yeah.
you already had that one.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was in a video game. It might have been Fable. This might have been one of the Fable doors that like asks you. One of them does a riddle. I've got the vague association that's why I heard it from first.
The only Fable door I remember is the one where you had to do the most evil act you can, and the easiest way to do it was to bring just a handful of baby chickens and just eat them raw.
That's my favorite door because I just have this vivid image of eating baby chickens.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Cool. Well, I got one more Odin code to give away too. I don't know if you guys got other topics that you want to hit. We've been going for a long time, though. We should probably start wrapping things up. I don't know, this is definitely the longest show of the year. So
Brandon and I'm bang.
Yeah.
Have people not heard of that Odin door? Fable door.
Got Odin on the brain.
I only have Odin on the brain. I don't even know which Odin anymore.
Yes, so this is not for the free chair. Yeah. The chair, it was Odin Lake. Yeah. But yeah, we got one more Odin code to give away. So anybody got a last question?
I can have one.
Oh,
All right.
So now it will be water related. What's the other name for coidal wave?
I have no idea.
I voted in the chat, so you have that.
It's another way to calculate a wave, right?
Yeah, but it has other name that's more popular.
Oh,
Or is
what,
the
what
more
another
popular-
word- what's another term for how do you say
Yeah.
trochoidal wave?
Yeah. It's the one that Unity uses the same for Unreal uses it many.
Nope, we got people guessing. They're shooting it.
Yeah, we got it first. Gerstner wave. Yeah,
I was
exactly.
gonna say, to be fair, that's like 6 words in on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, but they had to find it.
You have to read a whole sentence, okay? You can't just read the headlines. That's a challenge.
So wait, someone got
What
that.
is this wave for?
Oh,
It's mostly the easiest representation of ocean waves and sea waves. Yeah, because the basic one you're just using sinus wave and something like that. Yeah, the Gerstner waves is the more about taking circles and that each point of wave is moving in a circle manner. So if you move it once, you have this kind of wave that you showcase on Wikipedia. If you add one big Gerstner wave and then you add smaller waves, then it gets almost identical to ocean waves.
Oh, okay.
This
This
is-
is what you use for RAM then?
We will use it for around 2024 or 2023, most 2024, as we won't be able to release it this year. Yeah. So this is the one that Unity also uses. The Unreal uses it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mostly you use if you're making a simple ocean, then you're using 4 waves. If you're using something more powerful, you're using about 64 waves, and then you have to go into fast Fourier transforms, which let's best not dive into this topic.
No, but it is worth mentioning though, because again, the bit that I always preach for this stuff is it's kind of fascinating how this stuff is it's foundational to a lot of things. So when we're talking FFTs in this case, it's literally the same thing that is used to calculate for band waves, for audio, for doing spectrum analyzers and stuff. So the fact is, and also it's the same rough technology that's used to make the procedural generated worlds in Minecraft and stuff. Because what you're doing is you're generating waves and you're stacking waves and you're doing all sorts of. So it's kind of fascinating how a lot of this stuff is like, if you understand what a wave is, then you have to understand, like, you can break this stuff down. And also, as a complete side note, just a personal rant from me, if you understand how waves work, you'll also understand why the MQT standard for audio is complete garbage. So, side note, don't buy anything that promises to have that as a high quality audio device, because the promises it makes make no sense because mathematically that's not how waves work. But it's a whole different thing. But yeah, they're garbage. But that's a whole separate
You can see past the
file
marketing.
argument.
Well, yeah, congrats for the winner on that Odin one. Send me an email. I will send you the code, and same with all the other winners earlier today. If you won something, just make sure that you email me, and I will send you over the codes for your stuff so you can go redeem it. And if you didn't win anything, you can always go grab the free restaurant with the pizza pack in it. It's up on the asset store for this week. I don't know if you saw that. It looked pretty cool. I actually pulled it in and was checking it out. And then also, before I forget to mention, I did again put all of the course stuff up 50% off. So that's all up on game.courses if you go check it out. You guys got any other last things you wanted to mention, talk about, or share? Other than I know a ton of Nature Manufacturer stuff is on sale right now, including the pack that we just gave away and a whole bunch of other different things through the new lava environment. But anything else going on?
Oh, let me just do one thing because people were asking specifically about. I'll slightly expand that rant I was going to say. Just 1 second. So MQA is called Master Quality Audio. It's an audio standard people have brought out that they've slapped onto a bunch of high quality devices to promise you get higher quality audio. But the argument is meant to be, and this goes back to people talking about vinyl versus digital media. What a lot of people don't realize is all the analog stuff that gets turned digital is repeatable. That's kind of the point. It's waves. Waves are repeatable. That's a perfectly... And the important part is you can compress waves in ways you can't do with other stuff losslessly. Because what you can do is a waveform has to... If you've got a wave, you can calculate the wave by just storing a few points because the wave will have to go through those points to satisfy the concept of being a wave. And so smart systems, as we've gotten, like things like Vorbis and MP3 standards, have found ways of compressing waveforms down so the files are very small and they reconstitute all the waves back by putting the dots in place and then just redrawing the waves through the dots that are there. And so there's a lot of promises now about higher quality audio because you're getting these huge files with all of the information in it, but it's garbage because you can completely regenerate the original audio by just storing the points that represent where the waveform would go through. Because no matter how much fidelity you go down into a wave, it still has to conform to the concept of a wave. So that's just a small rant. MQA is garbage. That's kind of vaguely what I was getting at.
TLDR screw. I can't even pronounce the acronym. I didn't pretend like I didn't mess up on the bit.
Okay, we'll cut that part right out of the live stream. We'll just go back.
I have an image to maintain, Jason.
So Salim, I assume you saw the comment, but you've got to come back. Apparently, there's definitely some demand, which I agree. We never even got to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean not having a store at the exit. So yeah, there's lots more. It no longer has one. May have been first, but doesn't have one anymore. Anyway, if you haven't already joined Jason Story's Discord server, you should look for the link in the description and for me to pop it up in chat and go join. It's definitely worth it just to watch and join in on some of the interesting Discord discussions going out through the week. It's behind a very cheap paywall to keep the spam bots out, and it's definitely a good spot. Any other last second stuff? I assume everybody's already subscribed to Corvallis. If not, they should have done that by now. And if you haven't done that, there should be a link down in the description, and you can also search for PowerCore 2000.
More content in the new year, maybe one before the end of the year, if I know how to manage my time correctly.
Yeah, Salim's been around a lot. He's just been busy the last year, so hasn't been on lately.
Super busy.
He's played every video game that ever existed.
Oh,
so
that is not true.
It's really good to talk to him. So Brad, that's how Brad used to introduce him to everybody all the time, and it would drive Salim nuts. Just go, hey, this is my friend Salim. He's played every video game that ever.
Certainly not nowadays. Like I was preaching about, game equity earlier. I want to play everything I see, and I just can't do it.
It's hard to even catch up in a year. Like
What's
again,
that?
Baldur's Gate, it's hard to even catch up in just this year between the new Zelda, the new Baldur's Gate, hundreds of hours of content from like a couple games.
Tears. Yeah. So my son beat Tears in 3 days. And I'm like, you just did that because you wanted. He's like a huge Zelda fan. It's like you just did that because you wanted to get done with. And his thing, he's busy. He's got like 2 jobs, going to school and stuff. And he plays his like cycle games, FF14, Destiny and stuff. And for him, it's game equity. He just doesn't have time. So this like IP that I know he loves, the fact he burned through it in 3 days, makes me kind of sad because he just doesn't have time, because there's too many games out. Games want you to stay, logging in and stuff like that. So it definitely sucks. But yeah, Tears of
I'm a
Kingdom,
huge Zelda fan too, which is why I'm not going to play it, because the new Zelda games are not good. That's a whole different conversation.
Come on now. Are you serious?
Oh,
You don't like
Not a fan.
the WoW format?
Yeah, this is definitely another. You have to come back next time, and we'll go on a whole big
Spicy
conversation.
take,
I'm generally indifferent. I just consider it 2 different branches of the franchise. Much like I feel about Monster Hunter between World and Generations, which Generations was the last one that was old school. I think they're just like 2 different paths of the same game, sharing a title. But obviously Breath of the Wild is significant in video game history just because it basically just made all of these, it redefined survival and travel in video games when it came out. Now everyone's copied it. But yeah, I think I can probably feel your point. But Tears of the Kingdom sounds like it has some additions that make it super compelling.
We won't do the whole argument, but I will just say, why do you play Zelda games? And some people, it's the Zelda 1 Giant Exploration. For me, I played it I like the story, I like the music, and I liked the dungeons. And what does Breath of the Wild not have? The story, the dungeons, or the music. So it literally has none of the things that, to me, encapsulates the concept of what a Zelda game is.
Yep. I can 100% agree with you on that one. But yeah, I'm hoping to play Tears. But then Baldur's Gate, I played Baldur's Gate. I think I've been playing it since it was like in early release, but I've got like 600 hours in it, never finished it. I just recently started playing again. Just because I'm like, I got to start over and like try to burn through it. But the game is so deep. It's got so much. It's just dense.
I finished it at 125 hours, and I did and I thought I did everything, but no, obviously, I'm going back, and there's still so much more.
I have to go through and click everything. I have to mess with every conversation. I have to, and then like my buddy wants to play co-op, which we played Divinity 2 co-op. I think I got like 600-800 hours something in Divinity 2, and I cannot play a Larian game co-op unless. The only way you can play those games co-op, if you're interested in playing the story and stuff and experiencing the game, you just can't do it co-op unless you have an agreement that one person is like the leader and you only basically engage in fights and stuff. And then like maybe you'll talk about how a conversation will go. Because otherwise, because it's so freeform, you're
gonna step on each other's toes.
Like,
for
I've seen that on YouTube.
Stuff.
People are like playing the game, and one guy stabs the person the other one's talking to, and it's like, well, I guess we lose that entire plot line now, right? Like,
So a buddy of mine was like, we can do a 4-player Baldur's Gate 3, and we just kill everybody. I'm like, all right, that's fine. If that's the agreement going in, then yeah, that sounds like fun. But if you want to like engage in the story, Larian did just recently, I think patch 4 added a focus option. So if someone in your group goes to talk to someone, it'll automatically pop you into that conversation. Whereas before you had to like be near them and click on them, which I think is a great addition for sure. Because like being far away and exploring, you shouldn't be punished for it. And definitely when you can't have all those conversations, you just feel like, well, why am I here? So I don't want to play Baldur's Gate 3 co-op, but maybe I will now with that addition. It's one of those small things that helps a lot. But you just can't play those games co-op. It's crazy unless you just want to slaughter everybody, which
I couldn't I tried once to play with somebody, and I'd already finished the act 1, and so I started again to play with them. And honestly, just the fact that like they didn't know all the actions and buttons, because it isn't very intuitive at the start, I was like, I don't have the patience to wait 5 minutes for each of their turns. This is killing me. So I had to say, you don't play it by yourself. I can't do this.
Especially if they don't the wait time. play along, like after you finished it, it's kind of fun because then you can
Yeah.
kind of like guide their experience. But you have to
Yeah.
really be invested in how is that other
Yeah.
person playing.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're probably going to get bored. You're going to want to do something. You're going to start stepping on
because
each other's toes.
because again, there's probably some other game that just came out that I want to play instead in that time. I'm
Like
trying
the
to
new
find
level
like
of
a good
Ultra Kill
racing
came
game
out.
and a good fighting game to play because I haven't invested in either one of those genres in a while. So I'm looking for something good. I tried Street Fighter 6, but I think it's probably just too technical for me. I want something a little bit more fun, more kind of arcadey. But yeah, I've been wanting a good 2D fighting
I think
game.
Cassette Beast is the next on my to-do list at some point. Is like a fun small game. Basically,
friend
like more
showed me. It
modern
was-
take on Pokemon. So it looks good.
Yeah, it looks
Oh, the
amazing.
cassette. Yeah. I have that. I haven't checked it out, but that game looks pretty fun.
For 2D Fighter, have you tried some of the more mainstream ones like Fighter Z, or I think there's one I'm forgetting, but it's coming out soon. It's more simplified, but I love Fighter Z just because of the aesthetic. It looks so pretty.
Yeah. Okay, Fighter Z. I'll check it out. I'll try that for sure. But yeah, I guess we're done technically, but no.
Yeah, I was playing this one.
What's this?
Talking about games, I was playing this one just a couple days ago. Somebody recommended it. It was a lot of fun. It's
Is it
Dungeons.
like 4-player ISO?
No,
Or
it's
is it battle?
it's from what I can tell, it's single player and co-op, and it's dungeon builder / RTS. So your RTS above ground, dungeon builder down below ground, and you're like constantly going back and forth, like between building your dungeon underneath and then going up and attacking up above. Apparently, it's the fourth one in a series. I didn't know it existed, but it was fun.
Yeah.
I played it until I fell asleep, and I was having a blast. And it's funny too. It's just full of a bunch of random.
As a
jokes
big
about it.
Dungeon Keeper fan back in the day, it looks like right up my alley. So
It felt like that. It was like Dungeon Keeper with RTS style. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first one was very close to Dungeon Keeper. They added the nice twist was the when you're on the ground that you have RTS and you can do something with your troops. Yeah, for me, it's very good version of Dungeon Keeper.
Also, the metal opener, I appreciate it, and it came out on my birthday, so I'm adding it to the wish list.
Yeah, it was pretty funny too. It's just full of jokes, and it's a good one. At least if you like that dungeon builder. I always like Dungeon Keeper too. It was like when I asked for games like this. I think I was messaging you, Salim, in Discord while we were in the student call, and somebody recommended this one. We were talking about
if you're more of a
boss based.
If you're more of a platformer type person, the last two games I played were Lunasis and Pseudo Regalia. Those two are really good if you like sort of movement-based, retro-esque sort of platformer type stuff.
Pseudo Regalia.
Can you type those out? I have no idea how to.
Oh yeah, the names are a bit wacky on these ones.
PSEUDORGALIA.
So Lunasis is one of them. That's easier. Get to that, and then Pseudo Regalia is the one with the weird name, which I think is.
My games equity has been so bad.
Oh
lately.
yes, I got the spelling
I'm not
right.
even
Yes.
finished.
Yeah, there you go.
What is
So it's like retro-inspired sort of N64-esque era thing. And it's like kind of speedrunny, where there's like, think of it kind of the way Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, it had that sort of vibe where you race through the levels, but then there's like multiple different sets of collectibles to run through at different speeds and things. And there's sort of like secret areas, exits in the levels and stuff. And yeah, it's cool.
Oh, a little Mario style in there too. Yeah, nice.
And then the other one is kind of similar, only it's more Metroidvania style, but it's principally the same kind of thing. It's movement based, third person sort of platformer stuff. So that's kind of more my speed, because these are the kind of games you can pick up and play for a bit in between work and have a lot of fun with.
I saw Pseudo Regalia on. There's a YouTuber called Iron Pineapple who does a series called like X Souls Likes You've Never Seen.
Yeah, I played this. Yeah, 10 Souls Like You Haven't. Yeah, I watched those too. They're great.
Yep. It was I really love it because you find so many cool little indie darlings for that's just a really cool game that I've just not seen before. The amount of times that people abuse the tagging system on Steam is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of platformers, I interviewed the guys that made this one, and it's actually after looking at it and looking at those other trailers, their trailer is pretty bad. It doesn't do a very good job of showing the game off because it's very much like a actiony platformer puzzle game, but it seems to just show a lot of walking around and about the cool stuff. But this was a really fun one too. If you like those kind of games, I don't know, like Metroidvania style stuff, I had a blast with it. It was one of the only ones that I've played for a long amount of time. So.
Anytime I can block an arrow with a shield, I'm in. That's always good times.
And this one was built in Unity. We talked for quite a while about how they put the whole thing together and how they built it. It definitely should have a lot more positive reviews, though, in my opinion, at least.
Feyland, huh? Yeah, this looks fun. Man. See, you have to stop adding to my... No, don't add to my list.
The list continues.
Oh, my God. I can't. I just don't have gameplay time anymore. Makes me sad.
All right. Oh, we should probably get going. It's been like 4 hours. There's another long stream to add to the AI Jason story bot that's coming up. Yeah. Need lots more data to push into there. Get ready. But yeah, thank you everybody.
I have been tempted because we do have so many hours of this. I thought it'd be kind of like literally I could just write a script that would grab all the transcripts from every single episode of the Game Dev Show and build a GPT out of it. It'd be very easy because it's like built into the system to do it. I'm tempted.
You get to argue with an AI version of yourself. See who is superior.
It would definitely be good. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming out. If you're watching, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Go check out some of the stuff that we gave away. Go check out all the links in the description. Join Stories Discord, and obviously sign up for Corvallis's YouTube channel. And you're on like Twitter and all the other things as well, right? Or X and.
I'm never calling it X. We're going with Twitter. X is
X, man. X is cool.
I hate it so much. All the socials, hopefully stuff by end of year, maybe year after, but hopefully by end of year. So stay tuned. And
for your project updates, where's the best place to get those for your the model?
It should be the YouTube channel, Jason. It should be the YouTube channel. When I ever actually update, I have 5 different patch notes. I'm like, yeah, I'll make a video out of that. A month passes. Yeah, I'll make a video out of that. Another month passes. So hey, big update.
It's graceful. You should be updating more often. Like follow my advice.
True. I need a better record.
I haven't got the 2 years yet, so we're fine. We're still within the year.
There's still a chance, end of year, quick Jason story. Literally make it 5 seconds short of saying this is my video for the year.
Every now and then I force myself to record something that's like a minute long just so I can get a video done, because if I haven't done anything in a while. I did that yesterday.
Are they still called tweets on X, or are they called X's?
No, they're called X's, they're X
I think they don't have any.
It's not
called
X.
I was okay. I never liked the word tweets anyway. I thought it was ridiculous. So.
No, I'm going
to
okay with you need a strong logical name like Google.
I want to go back before Google existed and say, hey, you want to Google it, and see someone look at me like I'm fucking
like I'll ask Jeeves it.
Jason's filter is busted again. He's in Macy's parade mode again. Joy.
Joy indeed. Anything special for the holidays other than copious amounts of sleep and hopefully one video for me?
I need to pick up my father.
No work.
That's a good.
Yeah, literally sleep. That's lots of that. I love sleep. Sleep is great.
Sleep is wonderful. It's really addictive, Sometimes I just want to do it every day. I need to stop. I need to quit sleep.
Sleep's bad.
I will say, even though I have not created any videos anytime soon, I did buy this for myself as to hopefully get round to doing more videos. So
what is that?
I have a little B-roll machine right here that hopefully will inspire me to go out and make something more interesting.
What is that? What does that do?
It is the Osmo Pocket. So basically, it's a 4K camera with a gimbal built in. So you can basically go for a wander and like get some really good 4K shots with all of it sort of. Like, again, you could do it with your phone, but it's kind of a mess to hold and stuff. And this, like, you can prop up somewhere and then walk around and have a chat. And it actually comes with, as a side note, this is my favorite feature. It comes with a wireless mic that has the higher bit float, so you can't clip if you're playing it and loud sounds, and it's got a magnet attachment, so you can just clip this to your top, press the button, and you can like walk like a mile away talking to it while it tracks your face, and it works perfectly fine. And so it's kind of it's for me, it's a case of like my camera is attached to a giant rig with multiple light setups. I'm not taking this stuff down if I want to do like B-roll in the sitting room, right? So this allows me to just have a much simpler sort of capture. Like if I wanted to do a product shot of like I'm talking about one of the random game pads or something, you know, I can do that much more easy, you know.
What's it called?
The Osmo Pocket.
Oh, okay, check that out. Interesting. All right, well, before my internet drops out again, let's head on out. I guess don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and we'll be back next week. And I will try to bug Salim into coming to join us too. Hopefully everybody else will. Salim's the one I know I'll have to push and pressure.
Well, now that I've baited him with a rant on Zelda, we have to have that. So he's gonna have to come back.
Yeah, maybe next week will just be Zelda and game design. We'll just have nonstop arguments about what games suck and what games are good.
Ooh, I hope we can cover that one. My first one of my first games was designed after Zelda 1, never released, but taught me a lot about level design.
What is it?
It was like one of my first I was experimenting with a 2D like top-down shooter tile, and I used Zelda's map as reference for I want to be able to like walk around, have a little 2D open world. Taught me a lot of my basics. And I think I even still have the source code for that game. I try not to delete my source code. Very first game I actually finished, though, did die a horrible death.
I don't want to derail this for even longer, but just something to check out if you're interested. The very first game engine thing I ever used was something called ZQuest, and it was literally a Zelda 1 map maker where you wrote your own scripts and provided your own sprites and textures to build Zelda 1 games. And it still exists. The Discord is still active, and you can still use it. So if you want to make stuff for Zelda 1, it's got a whole tooling suite around it that's awesome.
Oh, we're adding more things to my equity list.
They actually used Zelda 1 to prototype Breath of the Wild mechanics internally. They would just build like all the cookie stuff they want to do in Breath, because they just have this like super simple thing to modify, and they knew what they wanted to do. They basically built a bunch of the mechanics in Breath of the Wild in the Zelda 1 engine, and we're using it to prototype, which is
because that was the philosophy, right? It was return to form. It was return to the open-ended. That was their thing. Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff.
It's fascinating to be able to have that kind of platform and build off of that. With more retro games, I hope we can see kind of that classical style, but maybe a slightly modern twist, or help just represent the classical format, but of course accessibility options.
Yeah,
and you get to explore what's in there.
We are derailed like crazy. I mean, I could talk for another like 5-6 hours.
I know we're famous for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing about being away for so long, is that when you come back, there's a lot of things you can talk about. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely be back next week. I think lots. I need to get ready for Christmas and stuff now, though. But all right, it was good seeing everybody. Goodbye. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff, and comment that Salim needs to come back, and Corvallis and Paladin's story as well, so that they actually do, and we can talk to them next week. All right, see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Good one.